All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you are new here. Appreciate you guys joining me today and appreciate you waiting patiently as always for the intro to finish up, to give me a little bit of extra prep time and allow time for more people to file in. I hope everybody is doing well on this Sunday. I myself just got over, well, I'm still getting over a cold, unfortunately. But yeah, the last stream we did on Thursday, I think it was definitely feeling sick. And as the stream went on, I was feeling worse and worse. And man, let me tell you, it hit me hard that night. I feel like it peaked that night. Got like a bad fever, couldn't sleep. It's terrible. But after it peaked, slowly started to get better. So the last 2 days of rest definitely needed. However, during that time, I was playing my PS5 Pro quite extensively, although maybe not as extensively as others, but extensive for me. So what I'm going to do today is talk to you guys about what I think of the PS5 Pro so far, in my limited use, obviously. I mean, I've had a couple of days, but you know, it's going to take more time, I would say, to really know how I truly feel about this console. Probably will take like a year or so, right? See new game releases, how they run and play on it, but I want to give my impressions. And I am feeling mostly better today. If I sound a little bit nasally or stuffed up, that's why. If I seem a little bit tired, that's why. Body's still fighting off that virus or whatever. So we're going to be talking about my impressions of the PS5 Pro, but we actually have a lot of really interesting stuff to go over and cover today. Sony recently did their earnings, and man, you know, I talk to you guys so frequently. I talk to you guys so much about how is Sony doing? What's the data telling us? What are the numbers telling us? Are they in trouble? Are they doing the right thing? Are they doing well? Are they faltering? What's going on? And we have some answers. I'm happy to say we have some answers today. And I think some of the stuff we go over today might surprise some people, might not surprise everybody necessarily. But we also have Sony commenting on the Concorde disaster, which is something that is absolutely worth going over, because we're not talking about Herman Hulst giving like a PR statement. We're talking about Sony having to talk directly to their shareholders and explain what happened and what went wrong with Concorde. So we'll talk about that as well. And yeah, we'll definitely have some interesting conversations over the course of today's stream. But I did mean to put up a poll here. Let me get that started. So I'm putting up a poll. Give me one moment. I'm sorry. All right. I'm putting up a poll. How are you enjoying the PS5 Pro so far? Please try to refrain from voting on this poll if you do not yet own a PS5 Pro. I know I can't stop you, but I can at least ask you. But how are you enjoying the PS5 Pro so far? It's awesome. It's okay. It's underwhelming. Vote and let me know. More hours swapping between games than playing any one game for a long time. Yeah, it has felt that way. It has felt that way. And I think that's, you know, to be expected. You're going back and playing some older games. You know what I mean? Games that you weren't necessarily planning on going back and playing from start to finish once again. But I'll tell you guys the games that I reinstalled. I definitely did not try anywhere near the amount of games that I've seen some other people trying. I only have so much patience to just sit there and install games, you know what I mean? And especially knowing I'm not going to be playing them in full. But there are some games that I would like to get back to that I haven't yet, and I would like to see. Why didn't you include the didn't get a pro option? Dang it. Miguel, yeah, you're right. I should have done that. I could have let everybody partake. That's what happens when I make these polls on the fly, you know. I forget a vital option there. But yeah, guys, listen, before we dive into any of these topics and conversations today, I just want to thank you again for watching. I want to give a shout out to anybody who can't catch the streams live, but you watch them later on. I really appreciate the viewership and you taking time to check out the content. I want to ask you to do me a favor and please hit that like button. All right, we're sitting over 50 likes already, which is great to see. Let's see if we can bump that up to 75 and then 100. It helps the streams. A couple of ways you can support the channel, the content, and the community directly. Number one, consider becoming a channel member. By becoming a channel member, you are basically pledging direct support for the channel, for the content, and funding it, and you gain access to some exclusive perks. Number two, consider gifting memberships. Gift memberships, we're striving for a goal of 25. If we hit 25, we will feed the cats or feed the beast, as we say. And gifting memberships not only helps me out, but it gets the community more involved in the members' content as well. Way number three, drop a super chat. Ask a question, give an opinion, make a statement, anything in between. It all helps. And the fourth bonus way is there's a direct donation link at the top of the chat. Basically like a super chat, but 100% of what you donate goes towards the content creator. So we are fully fan funded. I can only do what I do here because you guys make it possible. So I very much appreciate that. And thank you guys so much for your continued support. It's a privilege to be able to do this, honestly. So thank you so much. And as I say that, we have Matt Fu coming in, kicking off the day, dropping 5 membership gifts for you guys. Matt, thank you so much for the 5 bomb, bro. And thank you for the direct support. To anybody who just got gifted a membership, please enjoy it. And yeah, I have been lacking on the members content lately. I'm aware of that. I do apologize. Between getting sick and how busy things have been lately, it's been hard, but I do plan to rectify that going forward. So Matt, thank you for the 5 membership gifts. Appreciate that, bud. I'll update that, and we'll start, I guess, with my impressions of the PS5 Pro, right? So I was telling you guys that I was fully anticipating that I was going to be late to the party, but luckily I wasn't. For those who tuned into the last stream, my Pro actually arrived while I was streaming, and I ended up doing just a off-the-cuff unboxing of it, which was pretty fun. And so I'll give you a quick rundown of the games that I've installed and tested out on the PS5 Pro so far. So Spider-Man 2, Demon's Souls, Until Dawn, Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, Alan Wake 2, God of War Ragnarok, and I feel like there's one I'm forgetting. There might be one I'm forgetting, but those are the ones that I can recall so far. And so I'll start with Spider-Man 2. So, well, you know what? Before I do that, I'll just tell you my thoughts on the overall console itself. I mean, I have it right over here. It's true what they say about the PS5 Pro. It's lighter than expected. I mean, for a console that's this powerful and kind of offering this much, it's quite light. You know, I was like kind of surprised you just easily hold it with one hand. I did install the disk drive, which was very simple. I'm not going to lie. I kind of realized after installing the disk drive that you don't need the $30 stand. You definitely don't need it. I did buy the $30 stand, so it looks nicer, and it's definitely more balanced overall. It'll be a lot harder to tip over. But if you have the disk drive, I don't think you actually need, like, if you don't have like kids running around or something, or like pets that could knock it over, I don't think you actually need that. No, I did not reinstall Rebirth yet, which, yeah, I don't know. That's a game that I gotta check that one out, because from what I'm hearing, apparently Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is like almost like a night and day difference in terms of clarity, which is a cool thing. So that's one I got to get around to. But yeah, the overall look of the PS5 Pro, I like it. It is smaller, has less of a footprint than my base model PS5. which again is surprising. And it looks nice. I like the overall look. It does look premium. I do like the 3 like racing stripes. And yeah, it's not other than that, there's really nothing else to really say, right? Like, it still looks very much like it's part of the PS5 family of devices, so it doesn't look that much different. In terms of how loud it is, it's extremely quiet. I haven't heard anything. So I don't know if that's going to change or not, but as of right now, from what I played, I haven't heard anything. But to be fair, my base model PS5 was also completely quiet too. So glad to see that that's continued. We'll have to see like 2 or 3 years from now if the PS5 Pro remains that quiet. PlayStation Pete with a $10 super chat. Thank you for that, buddy. He says, I platinumed RoboCop. What's the first game you played on the PS5 Pro? Working 90 to 100 hours a week for 2 weeks. God of Work. Yeah, it sounds like it, bro. My wife bought me Call of Duty Black Ops 6. My birthday's November 13th. I will be 57. Well, I'll wish you a happy birthday now, man, because I don't know if you're going to tune in or not on November 13th. I should be streaming on November 13th. So I'll wish you a happy birthday now, PlayStation Pete. And Black Ops 6. Yeah, I've still been enjoying Black Ops 6. I was playing some zombies last night. Don't notice any difference in Black Ops 6 yet, because I'm pretty sure it actually didn't get the PS5 Pro patch yet. I think the PS5 Pro patch for Black Ops 6, and this is an assumption, is going to drop on the 14th, because that's when Season 1 is dropping. So I'm assuming they're kind of going to package it in that way. Because right now, yeah, there's zero difference in Black Ops 6. I did hear, though, however, if you play Black Ops 6 on the PS5 Pro at 120 frames, it basically locks at 120 frames. Like, it doesn't fluctuate. And that's without the patch. That's just the console kind of brute forcing itself. So I hope you enjoy it, man. And congrats on the RoboCop Platinum. The first game I played on the PS5 Pro was Spider-Man 2. And so this will be a good jumping off point to tell you what I think of it. So Spider-Man 2, I didn't play it for that long, but I reinstalled the game, and I basically just wanted to swing around the city and see if I could notice a difference in the visual quality at all. And I played both the Performance Pro mode as well as the Quality Pro mode. And I could tell you in the Fidelity Pro mode, boy, can you see a difference, visually speaking. Now, you are locked at 30 frames, which does suck. But in terms of like the ray tracing and just how good Spider-Man 2 looks in that Fidelity Pro mode, I'm not saying it's necessarily the most ideal way to play it, but if you want like blisteringly good graphics and you want the shiniest ray tracing, the best reflections, especially with the cityscape, looks really, really good. I mean, you can tell Insomniac is kind of messing around right now with the PS5 Pro and this Fidelity Pro mode to kind of prepare for what they're probably going to do later down the line with games that come out on the PlayStation 6. It kind of was making me wonder, like, this Fidelity Pro mode that I'm witnessing in Spider-Man 2, it looks so damn good, but it is still at 30 frames. Is that basically what the PlayStation 6 could end up being? It could give me this level of visual quality, clarity, and ray tracing, but at just an easy 60 frames per second locked. So there was that thought. But when I switched over to the Performance Pro mode, I will admit that in Spider-Man 2, it was a little bit harder to notice. And the reason for that is because, honestly, like, if you play Spider-Man 2 in the base model performance mode, it looks amazing. Like, it looks very clear. Whatever techniques that Insomniac deploys for their performance modes, yeah, you're getting some pretty significant diminishing returns in the Performance Pro mode. However, that's not to say that I didn't see any difference at all. The difference I actually noticed was in the reflections. I could definitely tell that the reflections were looking a little bit better. You know, the ray tracing was not anywhere near as good as the Fidelity Pro mode's ray tracing, but still very good. But there was one other thing I did notice that I could completely understand how for most people this is not something they're probably going to notice. But when I was swinging around the city, I could very much notice in the Performance Pro mode that, yeah, in terms of clarity at a distance, big difference. Big difference. Like everything that was a little bit, even just a little bit further away from you, but certainly further out, you could see much more clearly. And so there is this, like I could immediately see that, okay, these differences in the Performance Pro mode are subtle. And if you put them side by side, it'd be much easier to tell the difference. If you didn't put them side by side, some people probably wouldn't even notice the difference. The Fidelity Pro mode, I will say, is more noticeable. It is at 30 frames, as I said, but it is more noticeable. And so all in all, I was like, okay, I wasn't like majorly like, oh my God, I'm blown away by what I'm seeing here with Spider-Man 2, just because, again, Spider-Man 2, from what I recall playing on the base PS5 already looked amazing. And the ray tracing is easily the most impressive thing, I would say, for Spider-Man 2. You asked me to explain what Performance Pro mode. Performance Pro mode is essentially you're getting an upscaled resolution that basically looks like native 4K. The visual quality is pretty much identical to what you would see with a native 4K pixel count at 60 frames per second with some light ray tracing. That's what the Performance Pro mode is. So the biggest difference, I would say, between the Performance Pro mode for Spider-Man 2 and the base model performance mode is basically just the overall visual quality. The visual quality in the base PS5 performance mode is good, very high, but it's even higher and even better and even crisper, I would say, in the Performance Pro mode. So again, not a huge, massive difference, but something that if you have a keen eye and you can notice these things, you probably can appreciate. But I want to move on to the next game that I tested. And this game, I personally, now keep in mind, these are just my impressions. I personally was much more impressed with this next game. Well, I'm always impressed by this game. The second game is Demon's Souls. So I reinstalled Demon's Souls, and Demon's Souls, I would say, so far, is the most clear example that I've personally played and experienced of the Pro delivering exactly what it promised, which is fidelity level graphics at a smooth 60 frames per second. Demon's Souls is one of the best looking games that has come out this generation, in my opinion. And if you play Demon's Souls on a base PS5 in performance mode, you are getting one of the best looking games available on PS5. If you choose to play it at the fidelity mode on the base PS5, you're getting an even better looking game, but at 30 frames. When I played Demon's Souls and I put it in the PS5 Pro mode, I was like, this is it. This is what I wanted. This is exactly what I had hoped the PS5 Pro would do. Not specifically just for Demon's Souls, but like this is what I want it to do for hopefully most games for the remainder of this generation. Where Demon's Souls, when you're playing it in the Pro mode, it looks so much crisper. I mean, it looks straight up, it looks like a native 4K presentation. I would not be able to tell you that this is an AI upscaled image. I would only be able to tell you that's native 4K. That is as crisp and as clear as I've seen the game running at 60 frames per second. And that's the beauty of it, right? Is it's running at that 60 frames per second. And I was switching back and forth. I was switching from the performance mode to the Pro mode. Performance mode, Pro mode. And that's the nice thing about Demon's Souls is it does let you switch. I noticed in Spider-Man 2, it didn't let me switch back to the base performance mode, so I couldn't really compare it back and forth. In Demon's Souls, it does let you. So as I was going back and forth, I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah, you can, I didn't need to do that to see the difference, but I wanted to do that to just reaffirm that the difference I'm seeing is as substantial as I believe it to be, right? And it was beautiful, man. Demon Souls to me is the game that I played. There's one other game that also I would say very much got me excited. But Demon Souls is the game that I was like, this is it. This is what I want going forward. I want games that look this beautiful, that look this good, that look this crisp, and I want them at 60 frames per second. And my hope is that, again, I know not all games are going to be able to look as good as Demon Souls, but my hope is that most games are able to deliver that. So Demon Souls, suffice to say, I was impressed with, and remains just, you know, one of the best games that has come out this generation, easily one of the best looking games. And I do highly recommend, if you bought a PS5 Pro and you haven't played Demon Souls yet, I highly recommend, you know, giving it a shot. Because, man, it's just, even if you're just doing it for the visuals, right? If you're not really even into the Souls games that much, I mean, it just looks so good. It looks so good, man. Which area of the game? I was exploring throughout the castle, and I'm probably going to go back to it. The problem is I'm in New Game Plus, so most of the areas I haven't unlocked yet. But I was like really thinking, man, maybe I am going to make my way through New Game Plus to experience these areas again in this pro mode. We'll see if I end up doing that or not. But yeah, it looked incredible. So the next game that I tried out was Alan Wake 2. And, you know, Alan Wake 2, I have to admit, you can see that it's... So I did notice the difference, but I really only noticed it in the fidelity mode. In the fidelity mode, they added a fair amount of ray tracing. And again, it's at 30 frames, which is the disappointing part. But in the fidelity mode, I'm like re-exploring the game. I'm specifically in the other world playing as Alan Wake. And I'm like walking around the streets. I'm looking at the lighting. And I'm like, man, this does look really damn good. Like, it looks very, very good. Not sure if I would want to play it this way at 30 frames. But when I would switch over to the Performance Pro mode of Alan Wake 2, it didn't look bad, but I got to be honest, I didn't really notice that much of a difference. But to be fair, it was not letting me compare it to the base performance mode either. So when I played Alan Wake 2 on my base PS5, I played it in performance mode, and it looked good. It didn't look perfect. It definitely had flaws, but it looked good. Does this Alan Wake 2 performance mode probably look better? Yeah, I think so. Like, I could notice a little bit more sharpness. I could notice a little bit more crispness, but nothing that just immediately hit me and stood out to me and made me go, oh, yeah, that's night and day. No, for Alan Wake 2, the night and day difference, if you want to call it that, although maybe that's stretching it, really was in the fidelity mode. And I understand why some people are going to be disappointed by that, where it's like, well, I don't want to play my games at 30 frames. I totally get that. And so in the case of Alan Wake 2, I don't know that if that's going to be like the game, right, for you if you are contemplating whether or not you want to buy the PS5 Pro or invest in one. But I don't want to make it sound like it isn't noticeable. It is noticeable in the fidelity mode. Give me one sec, guys. I got to let Luna in. $700 for 30. Wow. Well, to be honest, man, like when I look at the visual quality that Alan Wake 2's Pro mode offers, I mean, I'll be real with you, man. It's kind of the same reason why I don't expect when I'm looking at Spider-Man 2's Pro mode. Yeah, I'm not expecting that at 60 frames this generation, even for $700. Because I can tell you right now, if you wanted to buy a PC, right? If you wanted to put together a PC that would be able to run games that are the equivalent of what you see from Spider-Man 2's Fidelity Pro mode or Alan Wake 2's Fidelity Pro mode, you're going to be paying much more than $700 to run that at 60. Like way more than $700. Yeah, you're talking $1,200, $1,500, maybe in some cases even more, depending on just how far you want to take it. And that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that that's a ripoff or anything. No, that's for you to determine, right? If that sounds like worth it, you want all that. I want all the ray tracing. I want this, the highest frame rates and the highest, pixel count and or AI upscaling, then you're going to have to pay for it. But that's why I'm saying that, like, it feels like with these Fidelity Pro modes, what we are getting a glimpse at is this is what PS6 games potentially can start to look like. But right now we can only show them to you at 30 frames, even for that price tag. So if you see that and that feels like, no, I'm good, I don't want to spend that type of money, for a Fidelity Pro mode, then hold off. But again, I would say most people, to be honest, most people who are buying the PS5 Pro are likely doing so to experience these enhanced performance modes that are taking advantage of PSSR. Kyle, member for 15 months, says, I'm contemplating on upgrading to the Pro, but I want to know, since I got VRR, from your experience, are you getting the value with FPS 60 plus 4K? From what I can tell, yes, because the next game I'm going to talk about, Kyle, I'm not going to lie. You heard me gushing about Demon Souls. Enter Horizon Zero Dawn Remaster. Now, I get it. It's a remaster. I understand. But I got to tell you, like, this game genuinely kind of blew me away. I don't know if it's the combination of how good it looks remastered, but I could absolutely see that the level of clarity that Horizon Zero Dawn Remaster offers at 60 frames, I have never seen anything like this on console. I'm not kidding. I'm not trying to exaggerate. I'm not trying to oversell it. And I'm not trying to make it sound like if you play Horizon Zero Dawn Remaster on base PS5, you're still getting an incredibly good-looking game. It's going to look amazing. It's probably still going to blow you away. But in terms of just how crisp, how clear it is running in the Performance Pro mode, I can honestly tell you Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, and it's ironic because it's a remaster, but I'm sure Forbidden West looks just as good, if not even better. Easily the best-looking game I have ever seen running on a console. Like, I was just sitting there, bro. I'm like, what? And it makes, I'm like, damn, I feel like Guerrilla Games is going to make most other studios look kind of bad because it looks that good. And yeah, dude, I was playing Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, and I was blown away in two ways. I was blown away by, like, man, I can't believe they actually convinced me. Like, I did not think for a moment that Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered needed a remaster, right? Or Horizon Zero Dawn. I didn't think it needed a remaster, but I'm like, okay. Saying you just said that about Demon Souls, so which is it? Well, yeah. All right, maybe I should... You're right. What I should clarify here is the biggest distinction between Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered and Demon Souls Remake is the art style and the art direction. Two vastly different art styles and art directions. I think what made me kind of jump at Demon Souls is it has that realism factor. Demon Souls Remake goes for visual realism. Especially when you look at the textures and just the overall artwork of the environments, it goes for that realism. And I've never seen a game that crisp and just like seemingly high resolution, which I'm assuming it's using PSSR. I've never seen it with those type of like kind of photorealistic graphics, at least for the environments and some of the enemy. I mean, I guess if you want to call some of these monster enemies photorealistic, but when I look at Horizon Zero Dawn, I would say strives for photorealism in the human characters, in the facial animations and just how realistic they look. You can see the pores of their skin. But in terms of the overall world and the landscapes, it doesn't seem to be as hyper realistic. You know what I mean? It kind of has more pop overall. But that, I will say, in terms of just the sheer visual quality, or clarity, I should say, not quality, but the clarity, the visual clarity at 60 frames for both of these games. I think Zero Dawn isn't using PSSR, and I think Demon's Souls is, but either way, it's like the Pro is making this possible. If we can get more of this console will be more than worth it for me. I can't speak for anybody else, but if we can get more of that more consistently throughout the remainder of this generation, $700 well spent. Straight up. At least for me, right? But yeah, Zero Dawn looked amazing. To be honest, it looked so good, I didn't even think to check the fidelity mode. I didn't even switch it to the fidelity mode. I just kept it in the Performance Pro because I honestly was sitting there like, I don't see how it could get better than this. I don't see how it could get better than this. Whoa. Luna, get down right now. Bad cat. It's like climbing the wall. Jesus. If this gen is another 4 years, the Pro is a good investment. That's how I'm viewing it, Titus. As long as Sony doesn't plan to just suddenly end the generation much sooner than expected, I'm assuming we're going to get about another 4 years, give or take. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. Plans can change. But if we can get a solid 4 years, and here's another thing too to consider, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later. Generally speaking, the second half of a generation is usually much more exciting than the first half because developers spend the bulk of the first half preparing their games for the second half. And, that's when, I'd say like the last 2 to 3 years of the generation is when it seems like you're kind of getting overloaded, where it really starts to hit it like a kind of fever pitch. And that, to me, is going to make the investment in the PS5 Pro even better, assuming that's what happens. We got to see if it does, but Luna's making me nervous over there. She's acting kind of weird. She's got that crazed look in her eyes. Calm down. But moving down the list of games I did also try God of War Ragnarok. I gotta admit, with God of War Ragnarok, hold on, Luna, get down. Stop. You're gonna ruin my chair. Be good. You're interrupting stream. With God of War Ragnarok, I have to admit, this is the game that I think I struggled to notice the difference the most. Where I was switching from PS5 Pro mode to performance mode, kind of back and forth. And if I looked close, if I really focused, I could maybe notice a bit of a difference at a distance. But outside of that, I really was struggling to see any difference. And I wasn't sure what to make of this because I'm like, man, I don't know if this is just a testament to how good God of War Ragnarok looks. Because I was looking at it, still looks incredible. Either way. But yeah, that was the game that I would say I probably struggled the most to notice any difference at all. Not even meaningful, just any difference. But from what I heard about God of War Ragnarok, players are saying they're getting much higher frame rates, if I'm not mistaken, which I was not actually striving for that. I was actually more focused on the the graphical visual difference. But maybe, I don't know, maybe I have to test out a few more areas in Ragnarok to notice any differences. But saying some of the areas ran at 900p. Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I'll be honest, I didn't spend that much time with Ragnarok. I was basically just kind of chilling around in Midgar and just, wandering around. Maybe I do got to visit some other areas, but it still looks really good. God of War Ragnarok holds up. Oh my God, Luna's being so bad right now. And then another game I tried. So Until Dawn is a bit different because I don't have any frame of reference. I did not play Until Dawn on the base PS5. I didn't play the original Until Dawn either. I purchased Until Dawn a couple weeks ago, but I purposely wanted to hold off until the PS5 Pro came, and I'm really glad I did because it seems like with the PS5 Pro patch, they also added a performance mode, and dude, it looks great, man. Like, I gotta be honest, I'm like, shit, this game graphically looks very, very, very good, like very good. And I was switching it between the fidelity mode or the cinematic mode and the performance mode. And I decided to keep it in the performance mode on the Pro. I don't know what the performance mode looks like on the base PS5. But all I know is as I, for the first hour or so that I played, and I got to say, I'll give you guys my thoughts on Until Dawn when I play more of it. Really liking what I'm playing so far. Got to be honest. More than I expected. Really like the presentation, but it looked very good. I'm like, yeah, this looks great. I mean, if it dropped any frames, I couldn't tell, but it was running good and it looked very good. And I'm like, damn, look, I kind of want to go install this on the base PS5 and compare it. Like, I want to check it out. I'm sure it still looks really good, but that's one of those cases where I don't have any frame of reference, but I'm glad I waited. That's the big thing with Until Dawn. I'm very glad that I waited because I do want to play it at the 60 FPS. And when it shipped a couple weeks back, it only had the 30 FPS mode. So, Apocalyptic, you're saying, can you get the Horizon upgrade if you own the disc version? I believe you can. Yeah. You can get it for $10. But I think it requires you to keep your disc in every time you choose to play it, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, talking about Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, I got to say, it's I'm a little bit surprised Sony went with the $10 upgrade, man, because the difference in quality, visually speaking, is like, I understand now when Digital Foundry did their analysis of Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, I understand why they were saying, like, this is closer to remake territory than remaster. But, I'm still very glad they went with the $10 upgrade path because that's the way to go. I think that, if they didn't do that, there'd be way more backlash. Josh Z, thank you for the $10 super chat, man. You're saying Nintendo just confirmed backwards compatibility. The Switch is 9 million units away from passing the PS2. I think if they don't discontinue the Switch for another few years, they can take the crown. It'll be interesting. Yeah, I was wondering that recently, Josh. I was like, man, the Switch 2 still hasn't been announced. It's great that they confirmed backwards compatibility, by the way. I mean, that would have been nuts if they decided to forego that. But I was thinking about it. I'm like, wait, how far away is the Switch from catching the PS2? And I think Jim Ryan, in his exit interview, said that, like, the PS2 was at, like, 160 million or something. I think that's the number he threw out there, 160 million. 9 million is still, I would say that's quite a challenge for a console that's been out this long and, has very much, I would say, saturated the market overall. But man, the fact that it's anywhere near the PS2 is incredibly impressive. And the Switch will, I think what it boils down to is if the Switch 2 comes out, does like nobody buy the regular Switch at that point? Surely Nintendo will continue to sell it But by that point, I feel like the Switch 2 could be the thing that stops the Switch 1 from being able to catch the PS2. I will say this, though, Josh. If the Switch 2 wasn't coming out for like another year, maybe like year and a half, I think it could catch the PS2, and that would be insane. That'd be absolutely wild. You think it's going to pass it? It still could. I mean, 9 million, it's a good chunk of sales, but it's doable. So that would, I wonder how Sony would feel. You know, Sony would be so salty about that, bro. Sony wouldn't say anything about it, but you know, inside Sony would be like just seething that Nintendo surpassed them. They took the crown. Luna, I'm going to have to ask you to chill. You're being way too chaotic right now. I don't like it. You're scaring me. Josh, thank you for the super chat, man. But trying to make sure I didn't forget any games. There are obviously other games that I've been watching people talk about and test out, and I haven't gotten around to playing them myself. Stellar Blade. Apparently, Stellar Blade is a huge upgrade. One of the most noticeable upgrades. Easily running at like 80 FPS, and at like the image quality. I think it was John Linneman of Digital Foundry. He said that the image quality in the performance mode for Stellar Blade on the PS5 Pro is actually better than native 4K. And that's the type of stuff to me that's like, whoa. Like that's kind of unexpected, you know? Like native 4K looks incredible. So to have an image quality that's not literally native 4K pixel count, but looks better, that's that right there is the future. Apparently. I know. Rebirth that's another one. People who are playing Rebirth are saying that like this is insane. This is insane. I've been seeing some other ones. So another one that came out, and I do have this game, but I didn't try it out. Resident Evil 4. One of the first things that people noticed is you can play Resident Evil 4 at like 120 FPS or like 100 FPS, no problem. I'm pretty sure that game is patched, so I do wonder if there's more to it with Resident Evil 4. A game that I haven't tested that I would like to, or maybe one of you guys can let me know. I don't know if anybody tried this out on their PS5 Pro yet, but Lies of P. Curious to see how good that game looks. Demon05, you're saying RE4 really surprised you? Yeah, I think Resident Evil Village also runs at like 120 frames, no problem. But, you know, let's get to the meat and potatoes, I guess you could say, of this conversation. And that is, well, so is it worth it? Is the PS5 Pro worth the $700 price point? Well, it's interesting because I feel like going into the PS5 Pro, what I had to say prior to owning it and using it firsthand, you know, comparing what I was saying then prior to its release to what I'm feeling now, not much has really changed, you know, where I think the Pro by this point in time has made it's drew a pretty clear line in the sand. It's like you either know that this console is for you or you know that it's not. I do think that there are some people, not many, but there are some people who are a little bit, you know, I don't know. And here's what I'll say. I want to speak to those people. I don't want to speak to the people who've already decided it's not for them, because I'm going to tell you right now, if you decided this console's not for you, I don't think if you invested in it right now, you're going to change your mind. Like you probably end up feeling some kind of buyer's remorse. I think if you're the type of person who understood exactly what this console is going to do, what it's going to do for the games that you're planning on playing right now that are listed for it, and what it's going to do for games potentially down the line, I think, you know, there's no reason for me to speak to you either, because you already know, right? So when it comes to the person who's still kind of on the fence, unsure, I'm going to say right now, it's really not needed. It's not. And I say this as somebody who's thoroughly enjoying it, and I do not regret my purchase. Like, I like the console, and the results I've seen, even though there's games that I'm not planning on playing from start to finish, I am going to play Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered and Until Dawn, though. I'm feeling very good about it, and I like what I'm seeing, and I like the results, and I know it's just going to get even better. However, I can honestly say that if you're unsure, it would be the better option would be to wait for newer games to come out and to see what comes out in 2025 and to see what those games do on the PS5 Pro. Because I think that's a much easier sell, right? I think it's like when you see 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games kind of racked up, new AAA games, and here's what they look like running on the PS5 Pro, here's how they compare to the base PS5. We might start to see some bigger differences as devs get more time to properly optimize for the Pro. Because something that has been made clear with my time with the PS5 Pro thus far is that it is up to the developer, as it always is, right? And I feel like that's important to highlight. It's up to the dev with, how much effort, time and effort, they're going to apply to the Pro versions. And I think that what we're seeing now is just, again, devs who've had a fair amount of time, but it's launch. Let's give it another year. Let's see where we're at. So it's one of these things where if you're going to pull the trigger, you're going to pull the trigger, right? If you're truly feeling the FOMO and you're really like, you know what, I can't take it anymore. I'm just going to go buy it and get it over with. I think you'll be okay. Like, I don't think you'll have much buyer's remorse. I think that if you end up pulling the trigger and making the purchase because you're like, I just want to have the best for the rest of the generation, I think you'll feel good about that. If you're somebody who feels like, if I buy this right now, I need to see impressive results right now. Like, I mean, like very impressive shit that's going to make me feel like, whoa, I cannot guarantee that. Like, I told you what I saw with Horizon Zero Dawn. I told you I saw Demon Souls. And for me, that's like, yeah, okay, that's awesome. But I don't know that if you're somebody who's on the fence, I don't know that you're going to feel the same exact way. So that's how I feel about that. Hicksock, you're saying the PS5 Pro is amazing. PSSR is better than 4K 100%. PSSR is, I mean, dude, you can understand why Mark Cerny was so excited about this, clearly. It is producing very impressive results, and I feel like it's the earliest days, I still can't stop thinking about just how, like, wow, bro, when I played Demon Souls, I'm like, this is it. This is literally the fidelity. I remember, I don't know if you guys remember, but I remember the day Demon Souls came out and launched on the PS5, I streamed my gameplay. Now, granted, I think my stream was capped at 1080p, but I remember one of the first things I did was I was switching in the starting area. I was switching between fidelity mode and performance mode. And I was basically gushing about how good the game looked at 60 FPS. But when I switched to the fidelity mode, I was also letting you guys know, like, man, but you can see, like, holy shit. When you do play it in the fidelity mode, like, the visuals, oh boy. But still, the performance mode looks great. So that's what I stuck with. And it's really cool that, like, now, and I paid for it. I'm not making it sound like Sony just gave it to me, I paid for it, but now I'm getting, like, to be honest, what I didn't think I would get this generation, right? I thought that that's something maybe at most I could hope for with the PlayStation 6, just because we weren't sure if Sony was doing a Pro. And the fact that they are, and this is where we are, and it's like, this is, the potential. It's awesome. Michael Lynch, you're saying, I bet Sekiro could blow you away even if there was no PS5 Pro enhancement. Michael, don't stress me out right now, bro. I'm feeling good. I do wonder. It's not Sekiro, Michael, but I think it was Armored Core that was being compared And I think Armored Core was achieving like 60 FPS on the Pro unpatched. Like the Pro was just brute forcing it. And compared to like the base PS5 and the Series X, I think it was like still hovering around in the 30s. So it does make me wonder. I don't know if the console would, if the Pro would do anything for Sekiro. It probably would. I mean, it does have that option to kind of upscale somewhat some PS4 games. One day, Michael. One day. Yeah, that seems to be the problem right now, is there are a lot of games that were confirmed to be PS5 Pro supported, but we're still waiting on the patches. I think like Silent Hill 2 is one of those games, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and I think there's a host of others where people are like immediately booting these games up, but like nothing's changed. It's like, well, the patch isn't out yet. So it seems like it's one of these things where, you know, not every dev had their patches ready to go for the literal week of launch. Yeah, like the GT7 patch apparently hasn't gone out yet. So, you know, it's the growing pains, I guess you could say, of being the earliest adopters, which, you know, goes to show if you do wait a little bit, you won't have to necessarily worry about that. But yeah, there's no patch for Helldivers 2 yet. I don't know if that's coming or not. Chris Brown, you're saying playing Horizon Forbidden West on the Pro right now, I'm honestly blown away. Yeah, I got to check out Forbidden West. Like, that's the thing, is Zero Dawn is still a remaster. And Forbidden West, I mean, from what I'm hearing people say, Forbidden West looks nuts. And the funniest thing about Forbidden West, as well as Horizon Zero Dawn, is they are not using PSSR. It's actually Guerrilla Games using their own anti-aliasing technique that, I don't know, man, they've worked some kind of magic with the Decima engine. Makes me wonder if they'll be able to kind of share their secrets with other devs. But yeah, man, I'm enjoying the PS5 Pro so far. It's not next gen. It's not the end all be all. And I want to talk about this for a moment before we move on to the next set of topics, because I do want to address the fact that there are a lot of people who I think right now, I would say there are two types of naysayers, if you want to call them that, or maybe not naysayers. Maybe a better term to use would be two types of people who are not interested in the PS5 Pro. The first type is the person that acknowledges what the console's doing and acknowledges it's doing something, but just basically determines what it's doing is not enough, in my opinion, to justify this price. I'm good. I think the PS5 is still great. And then there are those who I don't know who they're trying. I don't know if they're trying to convince themselves at this point, but it's kind of weird. They're trying to convince themselves and others that this console is literally doing nothing for games. And I want to acknowledge this because I think it's important to separate these two things, where that's why I'm trying to express that if you're somebody who is leaning more so on the side that you see that the console is offering something, you see that it's doing things for games, good things for games, but you just really don't feel like it's worth it. You're perfectly fine with what you're seeing on the base PS5. Yeah, I think you'll be fine. I've talked about this over and over again leading up to the launch, that for anybody who chooses not to get a PS5 Pro, you're going to be, I think, pretty happy for the remainder of the gen. You're not going to get bad-looking games. Like, you might get some games with slightly blurrier performance modes and certain, a certain visual quality that's not necessarily as good as it could be, but it's still going to look pretty good. You know? Saying Skill Up said buy a PC instead. That's interesting. I mean, yeah, that's a I would say buying a PC is an extremely viable option for people. I think that the whole idea, though, is for people who are going to buy a PC instead of buying a Pro, it's like very clear that the person who's thinking about buying a Pro wants something better. I think all you really need to ask yourself is, are you ready to leave the console ecosystem or not? I think that's really all it boils down to, because if you like the console ecosystem, the Pro is probably the way to go. If not now, at some point, right? The Pro, like if you want an upgrade, you want a better experience, but you want to stay, you kind of like the whole console experience, the Pro is probably the way to go. But if you're somebody who wants something better, but you really want something better than what the Pro is offering, the only thing you really got to ask yourself is, well, how important is the console ecosystem to you? Because if it's really not that important anymore and you're ready to move on, then, I mean, yeah, you know, assuming you have the money, because that's the thing. That's the only thing that people need to keep in mind is if you're going to buy a PC and leave the console ecosystem, you are going to pay more for the same. You are going to do that. But that might not necessarily be the limiting factor. Do I think they should have upgraded the CPU? We're 3 gens behind PC at this point. No, I don't think so. I think upgrading the CPU would have created a nightmare situation. Even like much worse than what we're seeing now, right? In terms of like the negativity that people have. If they upgrade the CPU inside the PS5 Pro, that would have split game development. It like at that point, it's a new generation, you know? And it would, the biggest problem probably isn't even that. The biggest problem is if they upgraded the CPU inside the PS5 Pro, they're basically going to limit their biggest selling point for the PlayStation 6. Because the biggest selling point for the PlayStation 6 is going to be that massively, massively upgraded CPU, more than likely. I can understand why some people feel like it may have been necessary, because it's like, you know, it would have definitely resulted in more. But no, I think, you know, keeping the same CPU and making development very easy and scalable for the remainder of the generation, I think is probably just too important to risk, you know. Orange Crush Gaming, member for 54 months. Thank you for that long-time support, buddy. Saying, call me crazy, but I 100% believe that the Decima engine is showing that it's better than the Unreal Engine. I mean, I wouldn't call you crazy. The Decima engine seems to be like one of the most cutting edge video game engines out there. It's just the only difference, the biggest difference, is that Unreal Engine is very ubiquitous. You know, it's kind of everywhere. More and more developers are adopting it, to whereas Decima is limited to literally 2 developers, as far as I'm aware. Guerrilla Games and Kojima Productions. I don't know if Sony's going to maybe one day express great interest in making the Decima engine more ubiquitous, whether it be across PlayStation Studios or maybe even beyond. I mean, people were just highlighting the fact that, bro, Death Stranding just finally released on Xbox. That's Decima engine running on Xbox. It's like, well, yeah, there it is. I mean, in a way, that's now the Decima engine has made its way to a whole new platform where it never existed before. So, in the future, I would say, Orange Crush Gaming, the Decima engine will probably expand. I think it will probably be adopted by more developers over time, starting with maybe some of Sony's internal teams where it makes sense, and then maybe way down the line to possibly even third-party devs if Sony allows that. But Sony might not. I want to make that clear too. Like, they might hold on to that and be like, no, this is ours, you know? So, but yeah, it's extremely impressive. Yeah, the Series S as well, which is even funnier, right? Decima engine running on the Series S. How did we get here, right? Kojima. That's how we got here. Kojima got us here. Kojima bridged the gap. If anybody could do it, it was him. Michael Lynch, you're saying, if somebody offered me a PC for $700 that was equal to the Pro, I'd still get the Pro. The ease ease of user, and for the most part, better optimized games. Yeah, I'm pretty much the same way, Michael. I have nothing at all against PC gaming. I just don't have an interest in it. Like, I think it has some upsides, maybe even a lot, that people love. But I don't know. I've talked about this plenty of times. There is just something. I'm happy with the console ecosystem and experience, and if it ever got to a point where I became unhappy enough to want to move away from it, maybe I'd consider it. But it seems like it's just gotten better over time, at least that's kind of my feel for it. I do appreciate the convenience. Here's how I game, right? Like, I pick up my controller, I press the PlayStation button on the controller. It takes about 10 seconds to boot up. I click my game, and then I'm playing. And I'm not saying you can't make it that simple on PC either. But what I am saying is that because it's that convenient, I don't feel a need to change anything. I just don't feel the need to change anything. Like, if someone's like, I could do that on my PC too, it's like, cool. Yeah, great. That doesn't mean I want to go. I don't want to move from where I'm at. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm stubborn. Maybe for me, it's just stubbornness. I don't know. But I will say, the convenience is there. And if that convenience is one day removed and things get more annoying and, less convenient, then I might start looking around. But when it comes to better optimization, yeah, that has been proven from time to time to be true, Michael. It is unfortunate. I know people like kind of make fun of PC players for this. I think it sucks because it's like, if you're paying customer on PC, you should still get an optimized experience. But it is true that sometimes it seems like the PC player base is kind of put on the back burner, where it's like, guys, all right, listen, your version of this game is a mess. We're going to work on it. But that does happen on console too sometimes, just less so, seemingly. So for some people, that could be a determining factor in, like, essentially sometimes being a PC gamer, you're at a bit of a higher risk of having to deal with poor optimization. Raven, you're saying you're going to move to PC after PS6? That's oddly specific. Doolin, I almost called him Doolin again. Delwyn Jones. He says, hi, MBG. PS5 Pro just killed it. It's amazing. Mid-gen. I adore it. Just test replaying Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, but wow, unreal. Same with the Spider-Man games too. Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered is the best. Gorgeous, visual upgrade. Nixus has crushed it. I agree, Delwyn. I don't know if you were here earlier when I was talking about my experience booting up Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, but my God. Like, I still don't think Horizon Zero Dawn needed to be remastered, but it's like, if you were going to give it a remaster, they did it right. Like, if they were going to remaster this game, they did it in the best possible way they could, where, I'll be honest, man, like, I didn't even have that much of a desire to replay Horizon Zero Dawn, but honestly, like, once I booted up and I saw the visuals, I'm like, I think I just want to now. Like, this just looks too good to pass up on, And it's funny because I do remember playing Horizon Zero Dawn on the PS4 Pro and being very impressed. I'm like, man, this game looks great running on the PS4 Pro. And I was like sitting there playing the beginning area again, and I'm like, I remember this so distinctly, and I can even remember how it looked. I would say the biggest change for Horizon Zero Dawn Remaster has to be the lighting. I mean, the lighting it's truly transformed on the remaster in a very good way, in a big way. But I'm glad you're enjoying your PS5 Pro, Delwyn. I've been seeing a lot of people expressing their enjoyment of the Pro, and it's really nice to see that, because I've been, it comes with the territory, but I've been, exposed to a lot of negativity regarding the PS5 Pro as well, which is okay, again, to be expected. But now that it's finally here, and, people spent their hard-earned money on it, and they're booting it up, they're playing it, and, you can't underestimate, I think just the excitement factor of just new hardware, right? I think most PS5 Pro buyers would be able to admit that you're not expecting the best of the best results immediately out of the gate because it's day one, right? Like it's a mid-gen, it's day one. It's going to take a little bit of time. For what's there, it's great and it's doing what it said it would do. But you kind of have this, I think, just basic understanding that you're really making this purchase now as an investment for the remainder of the generation, where comparing how I feel about the PS5 Pro compared to the launch PS5, the excitement levels are not nearly as high as they should be. That's how it should be, because with the PS5, I mean, you're really transitioning from one generation to the next, and you're like hit over the head essentially with like, whoa, okay, this is a crazy difference. The mid-gen refresh, as I think we've already established, but just to reaffirm it here, because I still see conversations that occur where it seems like some people still don't quite understand what a mid-gen refresh is supposed to do. It's basically less than half of that, or about half that, maybe less than half of that, where you should see some differences. You should notice some improvements, but you shouldn't necessarily get beat over the head with them, because that's, I don't know why I phrase it that way, like it's some kind of bad thing, like you're being harmed by these upgrades. But yeah, that's the type of stuff that's reserved for next gen. And that's why I think, again, man, the people who are enjoying the PS5 Pro right now, and I want to make it clear too, I have seen some people express some disappointment. I don't want to make it sound like it's just a blanket statement that everybody's loving the PS5 Pro. Are there some people disappointed? Yes, there are. I don't think I've seen anybody so disappointed that they're like, holy shit, this was a huge mistake. I don't know that I've seen that, but I have seen some people saying that, I was testing some games and I just kind of really I didn't notice it as much as I expected to, and it wasn't really doing it for me. And that is unfortunate. And I feel like that's maybe a person who took a bit of a chance. They likely understood what they were upgrading to, but they took a chance, and maybe what they're seeing just isn't enough. And I don't know, I don't know if they can return their console. Maybe they might consider it, but I would say at the very least, some people are probably sitting there like, okay, maybe this is an investment, right? Maybe I'm not going to be too impressed with what I'm seeing now, but it's going to be the games that I buy over the next year that are really going to make this purchase feel justified to me. Maybe, right? And Grant H, thank you so much, buddy. Grant re-ups his membership, decides to come back to Greatness Awaits and show some direct support. So Grant H, thank you so much for that. That brings us up to 6 members on the day. And all right, there we go. It was counted. Thank you again, man. But yeah, I just feel like I don't want to be unfair about it and make it seem like all I'm seeing just across the board, everybody loves their Pro and everybody loves the Pro. Like, no, it's not like that. Most people, from what I can tell, are enjoying their PS5 Pro, but I have seen some people that are, it seems like they're a little bit nervous. It seems like they're a little bit nervous that they're gonna feel like they're gonna end up regretting it, and I think that's fair. Like I get it, and my hope for them is that they don't end up regretting it, right? Because that would be bad for me too, because that means that Sony had a very underwhelming mid-gen for the remainder of the gen. We don't want that. And Hellbound 1981, the legend returns. He comes in, he drops 5 more membership gifts for you guys, keeping the member train rolling today, bringing us up to 11 members on the day. So Hellbound, my friend, thank you so much as always for the continued support there. Yeah, guys, we'll see if we can continue to push for this member goal of 25. If we hit 25, I know why Hellbound dropped 5. He wants to hit 25 so we can feed the Beast and the Micro Panther. Right now, they're in their slumber, I guess. So thank you for that, man. All right. Let's see where we're at. And Steven Leon coming in out of nowhere, slam dunking it, bro. Just absolutely crushing it. hanging onto the rim, destroying the backboard. I don't know why I'm going with this analogy, but Steven Leon just dropped 20 membership gifts for you guys. He says, we're not just getting the 25, man. We're going beyond that. So, Steven, thank you so much, bro.
Holy shit.
Well, there we go. Hellbound's very happy. I know Hellbound's like, yes, now it's time. It's time to feed the beast. So I'll play that soundbite too.
Bones, do you read me? It's time to feed the beast.
So I do got to let you guys know, we're going to get back on topic. Don't fight. No, hey, whoa, okay, don't. I was worried about this. I don't know if you guys just heard that. I don't know what that just sounded like through the mic. Boss basically just did like a Bruce Lee scream. Before I dole out these treats, I gotta say, dude, Boss and Luna, I was assuming as time went on, they would get better with each other. Boss is not having it. Boss is getting crazy, dude. Like, I'm actually getting concerned. I don't know if I'm gonna have to implement some measures. All right, Boss, look, here. Come here. Come on, relax. Up here. All right. Listen, for everybody's safety, I think I'm gonna have to give Boss his treats on the floor right now because it's not looking good over here. Yeah, so I thought that they would get better with each other and start sharing more and whatever, but is Boss being a bully? I mean, honestly, I think he just feels kind of threatened. I don't think he's like, I mean, he's an animal, you know? It's hard to say he's trying to be mean. I don't think he's trying to be mean, but it's just that Luna's getting bigger and, you know, she's also still a kitten though. She's not fully grown, so she eats a lot and she's very hungry all the time. I mean, he's hungry all the time too. It just seems to me like Boss, as she's getting a little bit bigger, he's getting a little bit more threatened and feeling like he has to become a little bit more or even a lot more territorial. But what's interesting is Luna doesn't really show much fear, which I think upsets him even further because, yeah, maybe she is meant to ultimately be the alpha here. Because she just is not scared of him, dude. And he's getting crazy. So anyway, save the cat talk for later, but there you go. Don't worry, Boss did get his treats. So before we continue with our conversation, I just want to thank you guys for the support. Steven, thank you for the 20 memberships, Hellbound, and everybody else who gifts. We're currently now at 31 members, so we'll strive for a second goal of 50. If we get there, fantastic. You know, I could always use the support, but no matter what, thank you guys so much for getting us to the 25 mark. It means a lot. Okay, I did miss a super chat from Perfect Image. Yeah, Boss is a maniac. Boss is threatened by a strong woman. Okay, no more growling. No more growling, Boss. If you get violent, I'm gonna have to escort you out, okay? Perfect Image, you're saying MBG, I have a mortgage, a mom, wife, 2 kids, 2 to take care of. Gaming is secondary. My family is priority. $700 just to spend is not logical for you. Or you're saying it's not logical for you, Perfect Image, because I'm the head. Well, you know, I respect that, Perfect Image. I want to put that out there. Like, dude, that's absolutely respectable, right? Like, and that's responsible. And you're making the smarter decision where that's why I wanted to say, like, if you're somebody, because I know what it feels like to have the FOMO, right? If you're somebody where you're really into gaming, maybe you're really into PlayStation or console gaming, But really, it's just not financially viable to you right now. But you still kind of have that itch where it's like, man, I really want it though. Take it from me, like you're going to be. First off, I think you'd be fine if you don't get it the entire gen. But if you have to like wait until you're in a better financial spot or whatever, like you'll be totally fine. You're. I don't want to make it sound like you're not missing out on anything, but what the things you are missing out on are not near, like nowhere near as significant as you might be thinking they are. If you're feeling like you're missing out, right? Because I think that's it would be a mistake. Truly, I think if you're in a, I don't want to say a financially compromised position, because you might not be financially compromised, but it's just like, because I do see people throwing that around too, where it's like, you're broke, just admit you can't afford it. And I'm like, all right, come on, we don't. I think it's a little bit toxic, but for some people, it's just about feeling like they have to be as responsible with their money as they possibly can be, and dropping $700 or more on a optional mid-gen refresh right now just might not make the most sense. And I think that's totally fine, man. I think that's totally fine, because that is a lot of money, right? So I think for anybody who basically from the get-go decided that they want to be there day one, they want to be their first adopters, the early adopters, and they want to have it as soon as it's available, I think they're satisfied right now. And I think it's only going to get better for them as time goes on. If you're somebody who was like, you know what, I'm not really sure. It's very expensive. Is this really going to be worth it? I honestly think, I'm going to be real right now. I think you should wait till GTA. I think that's like the best time, because that's a game that I think, if there's any game that's going to take advantage of the PS5 Pro, I think Sony's games will do it. Games like Ghost of Yotei, games like Death Stranding 2, games like Wolverine, obviously, and there will be other third-party games. But I feel like GTA 6 by that time, not only will there be so many more PS5 Pro enhanced games, but that game might be the one where it's like, okay, I'm not saying you're buying it for just that one game. No, I'm not saying you're buying it for just that one game. I'm saying that might be the game that really kind of tips it over the edge, where it's like, all right, now it feels like it's going to be fully worth it. Between GTA 6 and all the other games that are now PS5 Pro enhanced, that might be the best time. And I think that's fine. I think that's why Sony probably decided to release it now. Release it now for the people who are most enthusiastic, early adopters. Let it marinate for a year, right? And by the time GTA 6 comes out, you'll probably get everybody else. And see, there you go. Perfect image. You're saying you're buying one for GTA 6 day one. Well, there you go. I was considering that too. Honestly, I was. I was like, maybe I will wait, but then I'm like, well, I play so much on my PS5 right now, and I have this channel, and I am liking the enhancements I'm seeing, so I'll just pull the trigger now. Yeah, Monster Hunter Wilds as well. Keep forgetting that's going to be PS5 Pro enhanced, and that's going to have a huge fan base. God, boss, please, bro. You're just walking around here like growling and stuff. All right, so I think this will conclude our conversation on my impressions of the PS5 Pro for now. I will likely continue throughout the days and weeks to talk about the PS5 Pro. Titus, you're saying YouTube crashed. Did it just crash for you? Are we good here? I get nervous when I see people type stuff like that. I'm like, oh. It seems like we're good. Yeah, everything seems fine. But yeah, this is for now where I want to wrap my impressions of... Oh, my page did crash. Wow, is that happening for us at the same time? Titus, that was weird, bro. Like, within like 30 seconds after me reading that, my page crashed. That was bizarre. Yeah, somebody's asking new camera. I actually didn't get a new camera. No, this is the same camera, but I do have HDR turned on. It turns out I had HDR turned off this whole time. So if the camera quality does look better, that's probably why. All right. Yeah, we'll continue to talk about the PS5 Pro. Obviously, I'm going to try more games in the future, new games that come out, new Digital Foundry analysis videos. We will continue to cover that. But for now, just those are my thoughts, right? We have some other very interesting stuff, maybe even a little bit more interesting, depending on how you view it, to go over. Danny Sanchez with a $5 super chat says, like and share the stream. Let's get MBG to 100K. Well, thank you so much for that, Danny. You took that $5 super chat and you're using it to encourage people to like and share the stream. Well, yeah, guys, hit that like button. If you do enjoy the streams, if you're enjoying the content, if you're enjoying the discussion, the easiest way to let me know is just by simply hitting that like button. And yeah, feel free to share the stream out as well. If you think that, there's anybody you know of that might enjoy this type of content and enjoy, partaking and participating in the community, feel free to share it out as well. Thank you for that, Danny. We are going to talk, let me give you a quick rundown. So we're talking about Sony acknowledging pre-orders of the PS5 Pro as well as the price point. Turns out the PS5 Pro is pre-ordering better than the PS4 Pro. Very, very interesting. More importantly, though, we're talking about Sony making a statement, letting us know, as well as their investors, what to expect from them game-wise going forward. And this is critically important because, well, let's face it, why are we here? We're here for the games. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about an update on PS5 sales numbers. And this is something that I wanted to really talk to you guys about because I've been asking the question, are PS5 sales slowing down? I've talked to you extensively about there is a lot of negativity towards PlayStation and Sony. And it's been growing somewhat across the internet, which I think a lot of people have noticed. And I've been telling you, like, I'm very much curious. What does this mean? How is this going to translate? Is this something? Is what we're seeing, conversationally speaking, across the internet indicative of what we can expect with real world results in terms of the data, the numbers? We're going to talk about that. And also we're going to talk about how the PS5 is pacing alongside the PS4. And finally, we are also going to talk about Sony acknowledging the Concorde disaster. When I say Sony, again, I'm referring to the upper executive branch of Sony. That's right. We're going to hear what Mr. Totoki has to say about Concorde's failure and their approach going forward. Before I do that, though, I do see people asking in the chat if I talked about Tony Todd. So yeah, I will throw this in here as well. I didn't have it like listed as a full-blown topic, but I did see that, unfortunately, the voice actor for Venom in Spider-Man 2, and also a pretty well-known actor, I would say, Tony Todd, did recently just pass away at the age of 69. And I was a little bit surprised to see that. I mean, he wasn't, a somewhat older man, but still, it's always kind of sad and heartbreaking for some people if you're like really a big fan of their work, of their body of work, to hear that news. And so what I will say is, I guess this is most relevant to, keeping in line with PlayStation, his work as Venom on Spider-Man 2. I thought he was an incredible Venom. Honestly. Like, I think that he might be the best Venom. His voice was amazing. Perfect. And, I do see people wondering, like, does this mean he's no longer going to play Venom in Insomniac's Spider-Man universe? Well, it's worth noting that prior to his passing, he did say that Insomniac only used about 10% of his total voice recordings that he did. Only 10%. In other words, 90% of what he recorded for Venom is not used or has not been used. And so, I'm not saying that guarantees we're going to hear him again as Venom, but there's a pretty good chance we will, I would say. So, yeah, he was great in Candyman. So I was sad, sad to see. I will say, I think it was like a year ago, I posted on Twitter where I was like asking people if they would like Sony to do a standalone Venom game. And I think Tony Todd actually, I remember he liked the tweet, and I can't remember if he retweeted it or not, but he interacted with it and made it clear that he saw it, and it's obviously something that he wanted. So I do have that little memory there. I never met Tony Todd, of course, but that little memory is pretty cool, And so rest in peace, Tony Todd. I guess we'll have to see what Insomniac choose. And Insomniac did acknowledge this, by the way. They put a post out there, and they acknowledge this since he played Venom. So we'll have to see what Insomniac ends up doing with Venom going forward. Man, kind of an unfortunate streak here, where first it was Lance Reddick, where he passed away, and he played Silence in the Horizon universe. He's like my favorite character in that game too, and he passed away. And now Tony Todd, in Spider-Man as Venom, he passes away. So very, very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Obviously, condolences to his family and friends. Yeah, that was a tough one too. James McCaffrey, he was the voice actor for Max Payne. He passed away, I think, last year, either earlier this year or last. I think it was early this year. He passed away, and that was really upset about that one, because I just realized, like, man, we're never going to hear him as Max Payne again, I don't think. And if you played Alan Wake 2, he was in that game. He didn't play Max Payne, but he played the detective. And it was basically like his final time playing Max Payne for all intents and purposes. And I didn't realize when I was playing out through Alan Wake 2 that was basically the last time you're going to hear him voicing Max Payne. So that was really sad to see as well. But yeah, rip legends. Excuse me. But yeah, let's shift gears here and let's talk about all this new information. Let's unpack all this new information about PlayStation, their earnings, what we can expect going forward. And I'm going to start with news about the PS5 Pro. I have an article here from VGC. It says PS5 Pro price has not had a negative impact on sales of the console, says Sony's president. Sony president Hiroki Totoki has said that the PS5 Pro's price has not had a negative impact on sales of the console. Speaking as part of Sony's recent financial reporting, Totoki said hardcore users are the target of this hardware. In terms of the pricing, many people made different comments on that, but pricing on PS5 Pro has not had a negative impact, I don't think. But to make things even more interesting, Hiroki Totoki then went on to say, quote, "It's a high-end product targeted at core customers, so we haven't been eyeing a large sales plan to begin with. I'm under the impression that the product is performing slightly stronger than the pre-orders of the PS4 Pro during the same period, so I don't think it is adversely affecting the product's sales plan." End quote. This is something that I believe is very much worth pointing out, because we are witnessing, I think, another PlayStation Portal situation where when the PlayStation Portal was first revealed, most people, seemingly the entire internet, kind of dogpiled it and was like, nobody wants this. This is going to be a failed product. What is the point of this? Who is this for? You shouldn't bring this to market. And then, as it turns out, Sony made a very wise decision to not only create that product, but bring it to market and go through with it, because now it's, I believe, Sony's best selling PS5 accessory to date. So I think what we're seeing with the PS5 Pro is something, I don't want to say it's exactly the same, but very similar in that I've been subjected to a lot, maybe too many opinions of the PS5 Pro. And maybe that's my fault, seeking it out, seeing what people are saying. But man, I have to say, I am genuinely kind of surprised to hear this coming from Sony. The reason why I'm surprised is because if you had asked me, do you think the PS5 Pro is going to have more pre-orders during the same time period than the PS4 Pro, a console that was $300 cheaper? I would have said, no, it's not going to be more. What I would have said is maybe it will be about the same at best, but maybe even slightly less. So hearing this from Hiroki Totoki, what it basically reveals is that there is not only solid demand for this product, but actually seemingly, potentially slightly more demand for this product than their previous Pro console. And you see, this is why I think it's so important to understand when you're talking, like when you are witnessing these decisions that these companies are making, like why did Sony make a PS5 Pro? Why is it $700? What's even the point? Well, here's your answer. Because Sony is very much aware that, listen, there is a market for this. Like you may not be the market, but there is absolutely a market. There are plenty of people, millions, that are going to buy this for $700 and be happy with it. And it's also worth pointing out that Hiroki Totoki does make it clear, as I've speculated many times over, that they were not trying to target mass sales of the PS5 Pro. Like they were not trying to court a major audience. They were just trying to get a specific type of customer, you know, a niche audience. And so I do think that there are certainly some PS5 Pro naysayers out there that are not necessarily thrilled to find this out. They're not necessarily happy to find out that, as it turns out, no amount of internet complaining is going to change the fact that this product is going to succeed and do just fine. I think there are people who I would say still are being disingenuous about the PS5 Pro, in that they are not happy. They're not okay seeing people enjoying the PS5 Pro. And I've been seeing this firsthand. It's not the most relevant thing, but just for the sake of kind of highlighting why what Hiroki Totoki said here is important, is I've actually seen people basically giving their impressions of the PS5 Pro, talking about they're playing this game or playing that game and saying how much they like it and how much better it looks. And then I've seen people responding to it with, no, it's placebo. You're not actually seeing anything. You just think you're seeing something better, so that way you can justify your purchase. And this is this is the type of kind of reaction I've been seeing from some people. And I just don't understand what so many people don't understand about the reality of the situation where Sony, again, man, if this product had a high chance of failure, they wouldn't have went through with it. It would take too much time, too much resource, too much money, too much R&D for it to just be a failure. They had every piece of data they had told them that this would be worth doing. There are people, there is an audience for this. And this is the most important point I want to make. Okay? And this is really what it all boils down to and why I'm bringing this up. Sometimes when you see the internet's reaction to things, and I'm underlining the word sometimes, you think to yourself, man, I wonder if whatever company we're seeing this reaction to, if they're paying attention. I wonder, more importantly, if they're going to react. If they're going to be influenced by the internet's reaction to this announcement or this product or this reveal or whatever it might be. In the case of the PS5 Pro, and it's ironic because in the case of Concord, it's actually the polar opposite of this. Just goes to show, man, you got to be very careful. But in the case of the PS5 Pro, Sony would have been foolish business-wise. Okay? I'm underlining and highlighting the words business-wise. Sony would have been foolish to make a decision on whether or not the PS5 Pro should be $700 or not, or should come to market or not, based on the internet's reaction, based on Reddit's reaction, based on Twitter's reaction, based on even YouTubers' reactions, right? They would have been foolish because they would have missed out. They would have lost even more money, potentially. And they would have completely missed the fact that, wait, hold on. There are people who want this product and will buy this product. Like, they actually want it. They're not mad. They're not upset. Like, they're actually excited. They want this. And yeah, I don't know. I just kind of had this, like thought in my head where it's like, you know, I imagine a Sony executive walking into a board meeting after the reveal of the PS5 Pro being like, guys, are you seeing this? And like holding up their phone. Are you seeing like the reactions from people? Like, this was a huge mistake. This thing's going to tank. This thing's going to bomb. And that person probably would have lost their job because, as it turns out, no. The PS5 Pro is somehow, some way, and even I am a bit surprised by this, it's pre-ordering better than the PS4 Pro. Even I didn't see that one coming, man. So, you know, that's not to say that your opinion of the PS5 Pro is invalidated. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Because, you know, somebody might respond by saying, well, that doesn't mean it's any less underwhelming or any less pointless. And it's like, okay, well, that is your opinion and you are entitled to that. But at the very least, what it does do is it does destroy at least one persistent conversation from one group of individuals. And that is the conversation surrounding the notion that people are not going to buy this console. Who is this console for? It's not going to do well. So that conversation has been nixed. And it's a good sign, I would say, at least for anybody. I would say it's a good sign for anybody who is investing in the PS5 Pro or is planning on investing in the PS5 Pro, because what it does mean is that if this console does sell better than the PS4 Pro, it's going to get even better support. And the PS4 Pro had really good support, had great support. So there you go, man. He said under the impression. That is strange wording. It is strange wording, but to be honest, I don't look too deeply into the wording of these translations because they are translated from Japanese. There are actually many things I've read from these financial reports where it's being translated from Japanese, and it just sounds so weird. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's what happens when you get translation from Japanese to English. Sometimes things sound very weird. So I don't know if that's like literally what he was saying. Like if he was speaking English, I don't know that the wording he would have used was "I'm under the impression." But yeah, I do understand how that may come off as a little strange, and I'll point this out too. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, Jack. Like it under the impression implies like he's not sure. Which is funny because it's like, bro, what do you mean you're not sure? You're the president of Sony. If anybody should be sure, it should be you. But I do want to say that just to prove how strange some of the internet reactions are out there and how disingenuous many people are on the internet, an actual response that I saw to this news, an actual response from somebody was, well, yeah, he's lying. Like he's lying. Of course, they're not going to tell the truth. He's just going to lie. And he's making it sound like it's doing better than it is. And it's like, you do understand that lying to shareholders is literally illegal and can land you in prison, correct? You do understand that the reason why people don't lie to investors, companies don't lie to investors, is because the investors find out eventually anyway, right? And it just goes to show that you can maybe try to spin things to shareholders, but even that is very risky because, again, if they catch wind of your spin where it's like, you made this sound better than it was, so it's not like technically a lie. It's just, well, it's all in the wording. It's still very risky because it's like you don't want to have that type of bad relationship with your investors. That's the last thing you want. But yeah, you cannot lie to shareholders. You will get in a lot of trouble. It's like it's literally not worth it. You're talking about the difference between if you do a bad job, you might lose your job. If you lie, not only will you lose your job, you're going to potentially go to prison. But yeah, it is worth understanding that when Sony, as well as any other company, when they are speaking to their shareholders, they're speaking in a very specific way. They're wording, and there's a reason why he said slightly, right? He didn't say like, yeah, it's doing way better. Slightly better. I want to point this out. The PS4 Pro went on to sell about 20 million units, which is pretty good, I'd say. That's a good chunk of overall PS4 sales. So if the PS5 Pro is doing slightly better, does that imply that the PS5 Pro could end up doing slightly more than 20 million? I don't know that I believe that. I think that that's a bit of a stretch. That's where it's like, well, let's see, you know? But you know, it's off to a good start. And you know, there's no denying that some people definitely thought this thing was going to be a major flop. And it's doing good. It's doing what it's supposed to. So that was the first thing I wanted to talk to you guys about. Here's the second thing I want to talk to you guys about. And this one I think is the most important thing to go over. So Sony Group has said that it has plans to release major PlayStation exclusives every year, starting with Ghost of Yotei in 2025. The company made this revelation during a presentation announcing the group's financial results for the second quarter of fiscal year 2024, which ended September 30th, 2024. Sony revealed that it expects sales and profits to decline in the second half of the current fiscal year due to a lack of major releases. In the same period last year, Sony released both Marvel Spider-Man 2 and Helldivers 2, both of which contributed significantly to that fiscal year's sales and profits. We are making steady progress in the development of new titles and in improving our live service game processes, Sony said. This is what Hiroki Totoki said. Starting with Ghost of Yotei, which is a sequel to the smash hit Ghost of Tsushima, we plan to continue releasing major single-player game titles every year from next fiscal year onwards. The emphasis on single-player here will come as a relief to fans. In the same presentation, Sony acknowledged that PlayStation studios are more likely to make hit single-player games than multiplayer games. So this is going so underreported, and it just goes to show the way the games media works these days. The games media, along with most other gaming related outlets of any kind, even like, YouTube channels and whatnot, it's all about the rage bait. It's all about what's going to get people annoyed or upset or angry, or what's the bad news. Earlier this year, at the start of the fiscal year, Sony's president, Hiroki Totoki, made a statement about games this year. And the statement, he basically said, we have no major tentpole releases planned until next fiscal year. And I remember when this news came out, headlines were everywhere, and they were all worded differently. And a lot of people didn't understand what they were reading, or didn't understand the context. But what a lot of people were saying at that point is, well, I guess Sony's got no games this year. At the very least, Sony's got no big games. They got no big games coming. But what's interesting is it's almost a year later. It's not quite a year, but it's like 9 months later. We have a second statement, an updated statement from the president of Sony, where he says the opposite now. He says, okay, the fiscal year's almost over. So starting at the next fiscal year, we're going to have new major titles, and keyword being titles, not title. We're going to have new major titles every year now going forward, and nobody's talking about it. It's hardly any headlines, anything. And I just find that interesting, because it's like, well, that's good news. Like, isn't that what we wanted to hear? I don't get it. And so for those wondering, when does Sony's fiscal year end? Sony's fiscal year ends March 31st. So basically, Sony seems like they're preparing investors where it's like, look, January, February, March, we don't really have anything. But from after that, like going forward, we're going to have multiple titles spooled up and ready to go every year. And I think that's, to me, that's extremely important. Like, this might be the most important news we got in a while from Sony. And it's interesting to me that it's going so underreported. And I don't know, maybe for some people, it's just like, it's a I'll believe it when I see it type thing, which I can understand. But I think what this really implies, more than anything, is that this whole idea we had in our head about the second half of the generation being, excuse me, being significantly better than the first half. And what will make it so much better is basically having way more games, and all the stuff we've been waiting for is kind of finally going to be ready to not only be revealed, but to come out as well. This seems to indicate that this is exactly what's happening. And Sony is in the process of preparing their shareholders. And so, again, I also think that this is quite reassuring to anybody who is investing in the PS5 Pro. So here's another quote from Hiroki Totoki. He says, quote, "This stage of the console cycle, naturally, we will have more titles coming for PlayStation 5, end quote." So, again, that was translated, but again, he's directly telling the shareholders that, like, yeah, this is the time of the generation where we have way more exclusives ready to go. This is what our studio has been working on this whole time. But yeah, this is exciting because honestly, man, like, I was starting to think that maybe the opposite was going to happen. I thought that maybe there was a chance that Sony was going to go light on the remainder of this generation. And because of that, maybe a lot of games that we were expecting to be announced and released during the PS5 gen are actually not going to be. And they're going to be saved for like the PS6 launch and beyond, for whatever reason. But yeah, no, this pretty much is the opposite. This is Sony coming out and saying what I've been hoping they would say, which is, yeah, we like basically starting in April of next year and every year going forward, like, we're going to have multiple games ready to go every year. That doesn't mean that there won't potentially be a year at some point where there's like a slowdown, but this is exciting because this is, you know, when we've talked over and over again about, man, what's this studio doing? What's that studio doing? Where's Naughty Dog? Where's Santa Monica's new game? Where's Blue Point? Where's Housemarque? Where are they? Like, well, they're there. I've been telling people, like, they're there. They've been cooking. Like, it's not like they've just been standing there doing nothing. They've been cooking. It's just a matter of, like, when are they going to be ready to show their game, and how soon is it coming out? So that was a pretty important piece of information that I would say that came out from Sony's investor meeting. But the next piece of information is, so you would think with the amount of animosity, the amount of consternation that people have with PlayStation these days, you would think they're doing poorly, right? Surely Sony's numbers are taking a hit. Surely people are leaving the ecosystem. Surely people are not buying PS5s. Surely Sony's profitability is even worse now. Surely everything's on the down. It's on the low, right? No. Once again, as it turns out, the internet is not reality, and the internet does not determine reality. Who would have thought? So we're going to go over some data, and what's worth highlighting in this data, if you don't pick up on it, I'll give you a little spoiler. Sony's doing extremely well, like PlayStation specifically. They're doing possibly even better than they ever have. And it's kind of crazy to think that during a year in which Concord happened, but yet this is where we are. So let's do the rundown. Sony reported its Q2 2024 financial results today, revealing that its PS5 console has now reached 65.5 million units sold. Hardware sales were slightly down year over year, whereas 3.8 million PS5 consoles were sold this past quarter. Q2 2023 saw 4.9 million PS5 sold. However, this was more than offset by the increased sales elsewhere in the PlayStation department. For example, game software for PS4 and PS5 consoles reached 77.7 million units sold this quarter. That's a 15% increase compared to Q2's 2023, 67 million units sold. According to Bloomberg, this was largely because of the outstanding success of Game Science's action RPG Black Myth: Wukong, which is said to have sold around 20 million units, though that does include PC versions. Team Asobi's AstroBot also performed rather well, selling 1.5 million units as of November 3rd, which is around 2 months after its launch. Even network services were more profitable for Sony. The PlayStation Plus subscriber base remained at 116 million monthly active users, and that's up from Q1 2024, where it was at 107. Was at 107 million in Q2 of 2023. The highly positive Q2 2024 led Sony to revise its gaming forecast upward for the full fiscal year results. Sales have actually been upped by 4% compared to their previous estimate, mainly due to increased sales from third-party games, while PlayStation's operating income has been revised upward by 11%, also thanks to improvement in hardware profitability. As a reminder, Sony's fiscal year ends on March 31st. So one last thing that's worth mentioning here, excuse me, the PS5 is currently at 65.5 million units sold. During the same period timeline, the PS4 was at 67.7 million units sold. So the PS5, as of right now, is only trailing the PS4, which is Sony's second best-selling home console of all time. It's only trailing it by 2 million units. And that's during an off year or a down year. So what about the Concord losses? Honestly, they probably already ate those losses, dude, at this point. I mean, the truth is, shutting the studio down probably offset it more than anything. The biggest reason why Sony probably shut that studio down is because people are like wondering, like, why not have Concord Studio make another game? Like, dude, do you know how much money that studio is burning every single day? And I get it. It's sad, people losing their jobs and whatnot. But if we're talking about like a business that's trying to remain profitable, and not run into problems, dude, that studio had 150 full-time developers working in Washington. Honestly, shutting the studio down probably is what offset it more than anything. And that's probably why they decided to do it right before this went up. But I thought that this was very important to highlight, guys, because listen, I frequently am at odds, and I'm sure many of you are as well, with a lot of the internet hearsay and a lot of other personalities on the internet that cover gaming. And I get labeled, a PlayStation fanboy and a Sony pony defender and whatever, and that's fine. I guess that's just going to continue. But I've always have told people, and I certainly will continue to tell people, you need to look at the data. If you want to understand what's really going on, and more importantly, why decisions that are being made, you need to look at the data. The numbers do not, will not, and cannot lie. However, everybody and their mother on the internet can and will lie, or at the very least, distort and be disingenuous. So, we have the numbers. How's it looking? Subtext with a $10 super chat says, missed the beginning of the chat, but I'm blown away by the Pro so far. Rebirth looks almost like a remaster. Even The Last of Us is better than I remember. And hell yeah, back to single player focus. Well, there you go. Subtext gets it. Yeah, we're going to talk about that too in a moment, Subtext. It seems like Sony is not so subtly making it clear that we're leaning more towards our strengths again with single player. And I'm happy to hear that, Subtext. I'm glad that you're enjoying your Pro. And you're definitely not the first and probably won't be the last person to tell me how good Rebirth looks. I heard The Last of Us looks really good too. I haven't tried out The Last of Us yet. I'll give you another fact, says Titus. Xbox is up 67.3% this year. Comment, MBG. Wrong! Xbox cannot be up. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, of course they are, dude. Like, now that they have Activision Blizzard and a lot of their studios are spooling up their games, and finally, after years of, trying to get things in order, yeah, Xbox is up, dude. And they're the only, this is, dude, I covered that, by the way, Titus. And this is why I find it funny that people, they still try so hard. And I'm not trying to make it like about me or anything, but I find it funny that people still try so hard to make it seem like I'm just disingenuous when it comes to Xbox. Meanwhile, I did cover this, and the only negative thing I said is that their console sales are still down. Their console sales are still struggling. And people and Xbox players got upset with me for saying that. And it's like, dude, I literally said everything else is up and doing good, and Call of Duty's doing it for them, bro. Like, it's doing what it was supposed to do. You know? And that's why I'm just like, the truth is, guys, and I think that now that we're seeing the earnings of Sony, we're seeing the numbers, we're seeing the data, we've seen the earnings, we've seen the numbers, we've seen the data, except for Game Pass subscribers, but we've seen the data for Microsoft as well. Something that should be universally understood by this point, even with the people who have the thickest skulls when it comes to just wanting to continue to console war and fight and throw the sticks and the stones and whatever on the internet. Something that should be universally understood is, dude, both of these companies are winning in their own way. They're implementing very different strategies, and they're both finding ways to win. All the things that people keep saying that, well, Sony does this and if Sony does that, it's what's going to cause them to fail. And then they don't fail. And instead they actually make more money. And then people are saying, well, if Microsoft's doing this, Microsoft's doing that, they're going to fail. And then they don't fail, and their numbers are up. It's not like these companies aren't paying for it and making the necessary investments. They are. And to be honest, it's impossible at this point to compare Sony to Microsoft. You know, it really is. You're talking about one company that made a $69 billion investment in gaming, the biggest ever made in the history of the company and in the history of gaming, in the hopes of boosting everything. And that's exactly what it's resulted in. It's now boosting everything. It's kind of difficult to compare that to another company like Sony, where Sony's just kind of sticking to what they've been doing for generations now and just slowly ramping things up more and more, right? And hoping that leads to better gains and, you know, growth of some kind. And it is. But just focusing on the Sony side of things here, you know, everything we are extracting out of this earnings report, I think it cannot be understated. It has truly proven, and this has been proven, I would say, numerous times, but especially now, where things have really gotten, I would say, pretty volatile on the internet, and the way people react and the way people talk and the way people even treat others during these types of conversations. People don't know what they're talking about. Like, I mean, truly, people don't know what they're talking about. More than ever before, everybody and anybody can voice their opinion. They can screech. They can create rage bait. They can kind of flow with whatever they need to flow with in order to get the attention. And people, that's not the sad part, because it's always been like that. But the sad part is that now more than ever, people are seemingly susceptible to that type of influence, and they just believe it. And they just are like, yeah, that I guess makes sense. And that must be true. And it's just, when we get the actual real world results and we see the actual results, where are these people? Like, where are they? Where is their loud mouths? And, you know, like, where are they? Oh, they've already moved on to the next thing. So wait, they didn't even stick around long enough to see if what they said came true or not? Oh, huh. Isn't there a name for that? I think there's a name for that. I can't think of it right now. Maybe somebody else can. But yeah, I mean, obviously I'm being a bit facetious right now, but the reality is that what Sony is doing, the strategy that they're implementing, whether the individual likes it or not, is working for the company, it's working for the brand, and it's working for everybody involved. And I think that people continue to kind of get in these groups, and they think that if they kind of like rally around each other and they scream loud enough and they make it and they get enough upvotes on the internet, they can convince themselves and maybe some other people that, like, no, dude, this is bad, this is not good, and we need to fight against this. But it's like, what are you fighting? Because more people like this than not, seemingly. Like, the company is still continuing to grow. It's just like the people react with remasters and remakes. Like, I get it, and I've talked about it extensively. Like, I do think it's a bit overdone. Yeah, I think it's a bit too much. I don't know that we need all that, but I've also tried to tell people, in case you're wondering, like, why they continue, it's because there are people who want that. And that's what I think people are not accepting. And this is why I can't help but come off a little bit annoyed, because it's like I've been witnessing people doing nothing but bitching, moaning, and complaining that Sony is not releasing new games. And 2 days ago, we actually get a straight up statement from the president of Sony that going forward, like starting March of next year, which is very soon, that's like 4 months from now, every year going forward, we're going to have multiple new games every year. And nothing. Silence. It's just, it becomes clearer and clearer with each month that goes by and each earnings report in earnings call that goes by. And this is not me defending Sony, because there's nothing to defend. Those are the numbers. I can't argue with them. Neither can you. And, the best argument you'll probably see somebody make is, well, people are just stupid. And it's like, well, gee, you think? But that's not really what they're saying. What they're trying to say is people who play on PlayStation are stupid. People who buy PlayStation are stupid. People who support PlayStation are stupid. And it's like, no, I don't think so. I think that it turns out there's a lot of people who just like what PlayStation's doing. Not everybody's bitter, miserable, and constantly angry because they're not doing exactly what they want, what you want them to do at all times. Anyway, rant over. I've been going on too long. But yeah, a lot of projecting. But all in all, man, like, if you were wondering, all the complaining we've seen on the internet, all the rage, did it result in any damage whatsoever being done to Sony's bottom line? No. Not a fucking thing, dude. The opposite. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I'm starting to get a little bit nervous that there's some kind of weird situation occurring where Sony's trying to make people upset, because it seems like every time they make people upset, their numbers actually go up. Oh, God. Got that damn post-nasal drip. All right. Perfect Image, you're saying, question MBG, is graphics... I'm trying to understand, is the graphics cost holding games back for years? So you're asking, is the cost of making like a really graphically intense game holding them, not holding them back, but making games take way longer? Yeah, I think so. There's no denying that the better you want your graphics to be, the more cutting edge you want them to be, the more time and work that's going to need to go into that. No doubt about it. So, yeah, I think kind of like what Gavin's saying, engines are getting better. They are improving. They're always getting better and improving. And right now, engines are really seemingly making a big push to make it much easier and efficient. Not even necessarily easier, but just more efficient to achieve these better graphics that we all well, a lot of us want to see, and a lot of these studios are striving for. And we also have Slideaway saying the 5-second render for Abandoned looks great on the Pro. Oh my God, dude. Listen, man, I didn't want to say this. And I'm surprised. I'm surprised to be reading this. I'm not kidding. One of the first things that popped up on my PS5 Pro when I booted it up and I signed in was, I'm trying to remember what tab it was, but it was one of the, in the new home screen where it has everything pinned there. One of the things was Abandoned, bro. It was just sitting there staring at me. And I'm like, why? Why are you here? Why are you here? I didn't want to talk about it because it was weird. It was weird, dude. I'm like, you know what? Nope, not touching it. It was very strange. I have no idea why that was there. You know what I think it is? Yeah, Hassan's cooking, bro. Blue Box is calling to us again. You know what I think it was? I think there's a section for games you're following. And I don't know if it was because it was the first time I booted up the console, but it does it in alphabetical order. And I think Abandoned is the first game on the list. Is, A, B, right? Is it a sign? It's a sign. Oh, man. It took MBG forever to delete that app. It did. Yeah. But at least we have confirmation that the 5-second render, excuse me, looks great on the Pro. Dude, I hate post-nasal drip. Oh, my God. It feels like there's a feather in my throat right now. Just tickling. It's tickling me. It's that time of the year. Hassan for CEO. But yeah. So all in all, the big conclusion that I was trying to get to when talking about the situation with Sony, I have been eating oranges, by the way. Oranges, if I could speak. Saying I need that vitamin C. Dude, I've been eating oranges. And man, it's been so long since I've eaten oranges. Always loved orange juice, but I heard it's better to just eat them. You get some fiber, So I've been getting my vitamin C. No worries there. But the big conclusion that I'm trying to come to here, or that what I just want everybody to understand before we kind of wrap up this topic and close it out, is people constantly seem perplexed by the decision making of Sony and or PlayStation and the executives at PlayStation. And I, at times, am also perplexed. And it's not to say that every decision is good or great or the best decision that could have been made, because if that were to be true, then that means literally Concord would have to fall under that and say, yeah, that was the right decision. No, it wasn't. Clearly, it could have been better. Things could be better for Sony than they are right now. There's no doubt about that. Excuse me. But the most important part, I think, the most important takeaway is that it turns out, like I said earlier, 98% of people commenting on these things don't actually know what they're talking about. And that's okay. They don't need to know what they're talking about. The only thing that needs to be made clear, is anybody who is going to talk about it, they need to make it known that it is just your opinion. And I know that seems like it should go without saying, but these days, actually, it needs to be said more than ever. It does, because too many people speak authoritatively on matters that they have no understanding of, or they're just completely ignorant to. And it would really go a long way for them to just make it clear that that's just my opinion. And you don't have to agree with it. Because it's like, yeah, I won't. Because you don't know what you're talking about. And that's fine. Other people can agree with you as long as they understand they also don't know what's going on. But it's just been constant and consistent. More than ever. And there's also, and I want to make this clear as well, there's also been some individuals on the complete opposite side of that spectrum that have celebrated, or at least attempted to celebrate in obnoxious fashion, every single thing that Sony does. Every single thing that PlayStation does. And I'm not too keen on that either, because it's like, well, why? Like, how could that be true? How could literally every single thing PlayStation, I mean, every single thing, be amazing? That's just not possible. And I think to behave that way as if it is possible, like, no, every single thing they do is amazing, I think that is disingenuous. And I think people immediately pick up on that. And I think it also comes off as obnoxious. And I think that makes people frustrated because it kind of, it's in a way, in a maybe directly or indirectly, trying to devalue the potentially important criticisms that are needed to make something that's good or great even better. So I think where we are right now, at least where I am, again, it's my opinion on the matter. I've been telling you guys that 2024 has been an interesting year for PlayStation because on one hand, they've delivered a lot. Like, when I look back on this year and my interaction with the PlayStation 5 console and ecosystem, it's been very good. Like, most of the time. I've had a lot of games to play, a lot of exclusives, a lot of third-party titles, and I've just been enjoying myself all throughout the year. When it comes to PlayStation's showings, they've been a bit of a mixed bag. January showing was good. May showing was really not good. And then September showing was pretty good as well. But no showcase. So, okay. When it comes to the highs and the lows, yeah, I mean, we've got the highest of highs with Helldivers 2 and AstroBot, and the lowest of lows with something like Concord. So it's been very up and down in terms of just kind of witnessing, like, how high can Sony go and how low can they go in terms of their successes and their failures. And there's also been a lot of divisive decision making, such as what we've seen with the PS5 Pro, where it's like, is this console even needed? Is it too expensive? Is Sony ripping us off? So on and so forth. And I think that at the end of the day, where I land is I'm mostly on board with most of what Sony has done and is doing. Not all of it, though. There are still things that I think Sony needs to do a better job with, things that they do need to either, if not reevaluate, make sure they learn important lessons from, so that way going forward, again, they can take something that I think is pretty good and sometimes very good and make it even better. That's my hope for PlayStation. And, you know, I do find that sometimes I'm at odds with others who consider themselves PlayStation fans, who are like, well, I really don't, I'll point this out. Like, I saw this recently, and this was just an interesting thing to see. Not today's video, but the last video I made, I talked about not Sony, but Kojima Productions putting Death Stranding on Xbox. And one of the top comment on that video, and I don't know, the person who left that comment might actually be here in the chat, I'm not sure, was it kind of caught me off guard in a way, because I was trying to figure out like how exactly I should interpret this. And I'll tell you what my interpretation of it was. And I'm not saying that the comments necessarily matter, guys, but I guess they matter to me a little bit, because I'm interested in kind of knowing and seeing like what does the PlayStation community have to say about, the decisions they're making and some of this news. And the top comment on the Death Stranding situation was like, I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but it was like, Sony continues to be a joke, LMAO. and that to me is like, what, like, but how? Like, what? I don't, and I get it. Like, I feel like if we were to look at the situation with like Concord and somebody's like, man, Sony looks like a joke right now, I'd be like, yeah, dude. Yeah. Like, this is a joke without a punchline. But when it comes to Death Stranding going to Xbox and, Kojima Productions owning it, I like, that's what kind of sticks in my mind a little bit, because it's like, this is so much of what I see, where it's like, yeah, dude, PlayStation is a joke right now. And it's like, but I don't, I feel like I need a further explanation, I guess is all I'm trying to say. Because there seems to be a lot of people that agree with that. But then when I search for the deeper, like, okay, but why? Why? I can't find the why. And anybody who's willing to actually try to explain in depth what they actually mean, I find that they actually make some good points that I may not agree with all of them, but I can actually understand where they're coming from. And it just goes to show that, like, it seems like what's going on here is anybody who is invested in PlayStation at this point, to any degree, is like they're at a point where they're either like mostly okay with what Sony's doing and looking forward to what's coming next, or they're done. And they're either they're just no longer involved in the conversation, or they're kind of hurt. They have that kind of lingering, like they're scorned, you know what I mean, by what Sony did to them, and they gotta like constantly throw shade at Sony and still be involved in the conversation, but always being like super critical, over everything. And that seems to be where we are right now. And that's just kind of like my evaluation, I guess you could say, of where Sony stands. And I always kind of have this conversation when we go over the earnings report, because while I do acknowledge that the numbers don't lie and the numbers are important, and we do need to cover that stuff to just keep things straight, it is also, I think, very important to acknowledge that there is a general perception. And that is a perception I cannot ignore, because I am not Sony. Like, I cover Sony. I follow PlayStation, and I have a YouTube channel dedicated to covering it. So I'm actually probably subjected to way more of these conversations than anybody working at Sony is, right? So from that perspective, I do feel, in a way, kind of uniquely qualified to talk about it and kind of give my overview of it. And not that it really matters at the end of the day that much, but I guess it matters to me, right? But I know that it does matter to some of you as well, in the sense that it's just interesting to kind of gauge the general feel, the general vibe. What's the general vibe out there? And I've seen some weird stuff the past couple of days, let me tell you. I've seen some weird stuff. But anyway, there is one last thing we do need to cover here. And this is Oh God, man, this cough is driving me nuts. Hate it or love it, Sony is stronger than ever this generation. I mean, yeah, Michael Clark, that's exactly true. And again, I can understand why some people really don't like it, but the market continues to speak. It continues to speak. You're saying the general vibe never changes from fanboys? I would say it's the opposite. Well, okay. Yeah, if you're like generally, sure, but the vibe is always changing from fanboys. The vibe is literally like, this thing that was good is now bad because of X, Y, Z reason. And it's like, okay, but those reasons are pretty fucking stupid. But that doesn't matter in their mind, you know? All right. One last thing I need to cover here. Well, actually, two things. I want to point this out as well. I apologize for the cough, guys. You just have to bear with me. Push Square says here, you may remember over the past year, there's been a lot of hand-wringing over PlayStation's profitability. As is so often the case, this all got bundled up with Xbox's issues, and numerous think pieces are written about the console market as a whole. Well, Sony has largely already solved their issue. In its latest earnings report, where it confirmed the PS5 has shipped 65.5 million units, it revealed an astronomical increase in operating profit. Their operating profit is up 184% year over year. For the 3-month period ending September 30th, PlayStation posted profits of $909 million, an enormous increase on the razor-thin $320 million it accumulated the year prior. This is also more than double the $427 million it achieved in the previous quarter. It has prompted the platform holder to increase its profitability forecast for the current fiscal year. So it's up from $2 billion of profitability to $2.3 billion. The manufacturer cited increased hardware profitability and improved third-party game sales as the reason for the change. It specifically pointed to sensations like Black Myth Wukong as a game that significantly lifted its profitability this quarter. Of course, it's worth noting that the increased hardware profitability has resulted in price increases in some countries, such as Europe and Japan. So obviously can't ignore that. And we also know that the PS5 Pro is likely being sold at a very good profit. And they do mention here at the end, there's also been a bunch of layoffs and studio closures, like what we just saw with Firewalk and Neon Koi. So again, that is another way in which Sony does save money and is able to change their profitability outlook. But the reason why I want to cover this, I don't really care about Sony's. The only reason I care, I guess you could say care if you want to call it that, or why I'm paying attention to Sony's profitability, is because their decision making on what they want to do at their studios and how they want to approach game development going forward very much depends on their profit margins. Even what they want to do in terms of the general decision making of the platform as a whole and the ecosystem as a whole, the profit margins matter, and they're going to have a huge influence. And so one of the things we learned last year going into this fiscal year from Sony is that their profit margins were razor thin, and this was apparently a huge problem for them. And so whatever they did in the last 9 months has completely flipped it around. So, you know, what this means, honestly, what it likely means is that hopefully I don't want to like call it too early, but hopefully the worst is over in terms of having to quote unquote trim the fat, you know, and get rid of like any studios or projects that are considered money sinks that are not contributing. Hopefully it means that they have a proper handle now over, you know, the financial situation regarding their studios, because, you know, some of these games, man, that we want or that we're looking forward to from some of these studios, some of the big AAA games that are in development, they're going to be expensive, and it's going to be important for Sony to maintain healthy profit margins during the development of these games, because if something goes wrong, man, like we saw with Spider-Man 2 and like it apparently went over budget, like it can be kind of disastrous. So they're figuring it out, man. That's, I think, the important takeaway is Sony had a major problem with their gaming division and profit margins, and Hiroki Totoki came in, cleaned that shit up, and now they're doing great. so we'll see where it goes from there. The market is in need of a correction. Saying the worst is definitely not over. I mean, I don't know if I would say the worst. I mean, really, I don't know, man. I think the worst is over. I'm not saying it's going to be great now. Like, there could still be some bad things, but I think the worst might be over. Well, yeah. I mean, that's definitely one of the ways Sony's getting better profit margins. Like, hey, can you buy this stand for $30? Can you buy the disk drive separately? Like, yeah, there's no doubt that stuff like that is helping their profit margins. No doubt about it. But there's also no doubt that something like Concord flopping and Bungie struggling hurt their profit margins too. Not just, I don't want to just place the blame on like Spider-Man 2 going over budget. It's just like there was some serious mismanagement. Like, let's be honest, there was just some serious financial mismanagement underneath Jim Ryan. And that was Hiroki Totoki's job, bro. That's why he had to take over before they appointed Herman and Hideaki Nishino, where he's like, okay, we got some money problems, so Mr. Totoki, please go take care of that. So we'll see where it goes. Final write-up here. Sony has claimed it should have been performing internal tests of Concord earlier than it was to spot the mistakes that led to its disastrous launch. Speaking during a Q&A session as part of its latest Q2 financial earnings call, Sony President Hiroki Totoki said the firm is still going through a learning process in terms of live service development, and the gates, as they call it, the gates it has in place should have happened sooner. The gates that Totoki, I don't know why I say it like that, the gates that Totoki is referring to relate to user testing and internal evaluation. With his full quote reading, currently we are still in the process of learning. And basically with regards to new IP, of course, you don't know the result until you actually try it. So for us, for our reflection, we probably need to have a lot of gates, excuse me, including user testing or internal evaluation and the timing of such gates. And then we need to bring them forward, and we should have done those gates much earlier than we did. Hiroki Totoki then refers to Sony as a siloed organization and suggests it perhaps needs to go beyond the boundaries of those organizations in terms of development and also sales-wise. Earlier in the earnings call, the senior vice president of finance at Sony compared the success of Helldivers 2 with Concord's failure, noting, quote, "We launched 2 live service games this year. Helldivers 2 was a huge hit, while Concord ended up being shut down. We gained a lot of experience and learned a lot from both." He then explained the learnings gained from the success and failure will be shared with Sony's internal development studio so as to strengthen our development management system. We intend to build on an optimum title portfolio during the current mid-range plan period that combines single-player games, which is our strength, and which have higher predictability of becoming hits due to proven IP, with live service games to pursue upside while taking on a certain amount of risk upon release. While internal evaluations and tests taking place sooner will have only helped the project, it's generally agreed upon that the problems that Concord faced weren't down to the quality of the actual game. It was more to do with releasing into an incredibly crowded online market with a $40 price point. So I wanted to cover this as well because this is important to understand Sony's approach now in a world post-Concord. Sony's approach to live service now going forward. Obviously, Sony does not believe that if they just did more testing with Concord, it would have worked. I think that's not what Hiroki Totoki's saying here. I think what he's actually trying to say, and it should be obvious that this is what the outcome would have been, is that if they had done more internal testing and they got more proper feedback before they took it to market, they would have been able to avoid this disaster in the form of, at the very worst, cancel it. This was a mistake. At the very best, completely overhauling certain aspects of the game to get it to just be able to have a very small audience, just something, right? I think that's my takeaway from this. And what it does mean, and this is the important part, what it does mean is that with their upcoming live service games, they are going to be testing the shit out of them. They are going to be focus group testing. They are going to be play testing. And they are going to make sure that if any of these games get any type of reaction from a portion of these groups that seems indicative of what Concord would have gotten or reminds them of Concord, they will make changes. And those changes could be to cancel the game. This is important because I do believe that Sony, at least Hiroki Totoki, higher up at Sony, seems to understand that while maybe Concord couldn't have been saved, the crisis could have been averted. The public-facing disaster could have been averted. It could have just remained an internal situation that we never really learned about, or, didn't see it happen in slow motion. Somebody there seems to understand that Concord was made in a bubble. And that, to me, is good to hear, because that was the biggest problem with Concord, is that there just was not a group, at least not a large enough group, in place to tap Herman on the shoulder, to tap the director on the shoulder, to tap anybody on the shoulder at Sony and let them know, like, bro, this is a mistake. Like, you got to change this shit. You got to do something drastically different, because this isn't going to work. This is not too big to fail. This is the perfect storm brewing, the perfect failure brewing. And I think what this also seems to admit is that, yeah, Concord had a beta, but what it seems to indicate, and this is another, I think, important takeaway here and piece of information, is that, dude, Sony didn't play test this game at all. Like, they just didn't. They believed in it, and they just were like, yeah, this is good, and we'll do a beta, and it'll be great. And they had, like, no external input. And I do recall quite a few people asking, like, dude, did nobody play test this game? Like, how are they caught this off guard? How did they not know at all? And this would explain it perfectly. You get an internal team of believers all high-fiving one another, completely unaware of the fact that, like, this is going to be a disaster when you put it out there publicly, and nobody else, no external teams, no, closed alphas or anything like that, nothing. So my hope, I mean, like, dude, I read this and I assume, so Fair Games is going to get the shit tested out of it, right? Like, Fair Games right now is being played every day, all day, by different groups of people giving their input, right? Like, you would hope. But I think this can ultimately only be a good thing, because at the very least, we may get something that is focus group tested to the max, which can be annoying, but it at least makes me confident that we're not going to see developers basically being in a bubble while creating their live service games and not realizing that this is going to be for nobody. Nobody's going to like this. Saying, of course they played it. I mean, who though? Like, are you talking about the developers internally? I mean, listen, man, the blog post in, I think it was 2021, 2 years before Sony even acquired them. The head of the studio, the head of Firewall, Ryan Ellis, I think his name was, he said that they were play testing the game every day in the studio. And they loved it. Bro. Yeah, the developers of the game were the ones play testing it and deciding it was great. Something ain't right there, you know? So, something else I want to highlight here before we conclude this topic. Something else I want to highlight is the last part of what is said here in this quote. Oh, I missed it, or I accidentally exited out of the shit. All right. Well, basically, if you paid attention to that quote I was reading, they said at the end that they're going to continue to lean heavily into their single player games because that's their strength, and there's a higher rate of predictable success because of that. But they did say they're going to continue with live service, but this is the important part. They said that they're going to do so while taking the appropriate amount of risk. This is something that I think might go under the radar a little bit. And I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but to me, there seems to be a much heavier emphasis with this entire earnings report from Sony on single player and a lot of de-emphasis on live service. They're not abandoning it, not completely anyway, but notice how Sony is not flexing anything live service related anymore. They're not flexing it. They're kind of putting it on the back burner. And I'll be honest, man, I think this is the smart way to go about it. You can't abandon it completely. I think the shareholders would actually get very upset if they did that. For those wondering why they won't abandon it completely, because it's like, well, that's a big piece of the pie. They're just saying we don't want any of it. But I think Sony understands now that it's like, dude, you got to stick to your strengths and you know, do not go all in with live service. Mitigate the risk. Try a little bit here, try a little bit there, and see what happens. But don't let it get in the way of what's working for you. And I think that may be the biggest mistake that Sony pretty much did make, where they did let it get in the way for a little bit of their bread and butter of what's working for them. And I think they paid dearly for it, as we can see. But things have seemingly been course corrected. Also, AstroBot, 1.5 million units sold. What are we thinking? What are we thinking? I'm thinking that's pretty good, pretty all right. Naturally, I've seen people on the internet trying to claim that's a failure, and very sad, very, very sad to see that people don't seem to understand that this was a smaller AA game that Sony probably had pretty modest expectations for. I don't think it's amazing. Yeah, I don't think it's like, whoa, holy shit. I think it's solid. You know what I mean? For what the game is, for the fact that it's not the most well-known IP, and also for the fact that it is a smaller AA game, not necessarily something that Sony does much of anymore. I'd say that's pretty good, and I hope it does better than that, right? Like, I hope it does make it to 2 million at some point. Josh, you're saying you were expecting at least double that, to be honest. So like 3 million. I mean, I did speculate it could have done 3 million. And that would have been great. I do hope it does better. Like, I'm not concerned about it. Like, there's a difference between maybe feeling like it sold a little bit softer than expected versus being like concerned. But one thing that I think was made clear by Sony is they seem to understand that it was not going to be a big hit game, a big seller. Did it sell less than their internal expectations? Maybe. They did flex it, though. I will say, like, they did flex it during their investors meeting, and they gave an actual number. There's maybe an argument to be made that they wouldn't have done that if they felt like it really didn't do good at all. But I hope it can hit that 2 million, and maybe in the long run 3 million. I think that'd be solid. Because it's all a matter of investment, right? I think it's a matter of, like, obviously they would love if Astro could sell 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 million units, but it's not there yet, and it's hard to say if it ever will get there. But it's a start. It's something. It's got to start somewhere. And this is a good start. I think that's what people need to understand is that, the previous Astro games, the first Astro game was a VR game, a PSVR 1 game. The second Astro game was a free pack-in game. So this is the first proper AstroBot game, like just put on a console. So, Steven, you're saying, dude, just loaded up Ghosts. Man, on my monitor, it looks night and day. First test, we'll test more. Good shit, man. You think Astro will have a long tail? I hope it does. Yeah, I still want it to do even better. Carlos, you're saying 1.5 million copies is way too low for a PS5 exclusive. That's like 2% of the PS5 user base. I mean, I guess. I think what needs to be understood, though, is that, like, how many copies of similar games, similar games that have released on PS5, like 3D platformers, how many copies have they sold on PS5? Like, how big is that audience on PS5? I mean, I understand what you're getting at, where you're like, because it's a PS5 exclusive, it should sell better, but it's a pretty different type of game than what Sony traditionally releases as as their, like, system. I don't know if you want to call it a system seller, but a lot of their exclusives are meant to be like big juggernaut system sellers that really, like, whoa, win people over. I mean, I understand that if we're comparing how AstroBot has sold to, like, some of the big hitter games that Nintendo sells exclusively for their console, I understand that it's like, yeah, they're not comparable. Some of Nintendo's games are doing insane numbers. I don't think Sony would be foolish enough to assume that, like, your first proper mainline Astro game on console is going to do that. I think this is just the beginning. And I think, honestly, Sony is willing to... I think Sony doesn't really care in the case of AstroBot that much. And what I mean by that is, like, I don't think that they put a lot of pressure on this game, man. I think they view it as, like, a necessary mascot platformer that they want to try to grow in a significant way in the coming years. And as long as it doesn't, like, aggressively flop, where it's like it only sold 100K units, if it didn't do that, I think Sony really wouldn't care that much. And I imagine, again, I think the fact that they announced the number is all you need to know. Sony doesn't really announce numbers for their games. They announced how many units AstroBot sold in 2 months. That tells me that it did what it needed to do for them. But again, I would like to see it do more, and I'm sure Sony would as well. But I want to point this out. I have to do it. I got to do it. Please humor me for another moment, if you will. Couldn't help but notice on the internet when these AstroBot sales came out a lot of people that pretty sure at one point or another, at one time or another, that these individuals would ask you the question, but why do you care about sales? Why do sales matter to you? You're a gamer, enjoy the games. Why do they matter? I've seen quite a few people on the internet who more than likely said that numerous times. Suddenly they now care. They're very interested in AstroBot sales numbers. Why? I don't know. I think we know why. But that's just kind of something I noticed, you know? I guess sales don't matter until they do. Sales matter until they don't. I think the sales of AstroBot absolutely do matter. I think that Sony may not necessarily care too much whether or not it's a 3 million seller or 1.5 million seller, because I think they're going to continue to make AstroBot games regardless. It's their mascot now. But I do think the sales do matter because, well, let's face it. If the idea is AstroBot sells 1.5 million, then that means the sequel, which presumably will come out at the end of this generation and maybe be a cross-gen title, a launch title for PS6, but also release on PS5, the sequel should sell more than that. So we can see there's actual growth. We can see that it's actually on an upward trajectory. So I do think the sales matter, but I do think it's quite sad to see certain individuals out there on the internet that have certainly made it clear in the past that we really shouldn't pay too much attention to sales. We really shouldn't care about sales. It's kind of weird to care about sales. But then now suddenly they can't stop talking about AstroBot sales because for some reason they need to convince themselves, among others, that AstroBot is a failure. It is a failure, people. It's such a failure that Sony wanted to come out and share how many units it sold with their investors to make sure that the failure can be highlighted because that's how that works. But Ahoy Tyler, you're saying your PS5 Pro arrives tomorrow. Well, awesome stuff, man. I hope you enjoy it when it comes. Oh my God, dude, this cough is driving me nuts. This is what I hate about getting a cold sometimes is, you guys ever gotten these colds where you just, like, it's at the end of it, but you just have this, it's a dry cough mostly. It's just like a tickle in your throat and you just can't stop coughing, man. And it lasts for like days, maybe even in some rare cases like weeks. Oh my God, it's enough to drive you insane. PlayStation getting back to what they're best at, single player games. Hell yeah, man. Solaire, you're saying your little brother was telling you that the game is really good, so even he sees reviews. He's only 9. Damn. Jeff, you're saying this is your second cold you got this year? Yeah, it sucks, man. The more you cough, the more you cough. Yeah, I wanted to do a members ons today, guys. And I apologize. Like I was going to, but I went longer than I meant to, but I'm going to have to wrap this up very soon. And if I do a members ons, I'm just going to be coughing the whole time, man. So I'm hoping this cough will be gone by tomorrow or Tuesday, and we can do a proper members lounge. Lemon water, honey tea. I do have lemons, and I do have honey, and I do have tea. You know what? I think that's what I'll do when I'm done here. But all right, guys. So we'll do like a last call for any fan funding We'll go here for a couple more minutes. I don't know what that is. It's like some kind of marker. It looks like there's like a bug or something on my hoodie. It's like some kind of stain marker. But we'll chat for a couple more minutes. And then we'll wrap it up. So if you want to drop any more fan funding, now would be the time to do it, whether it be memberships. If you want to become a member, if you want to drop a super chat, direct donation, now is the time to do it. Ray, you're saying, MBG, it's crazy how Xbox players talk about sales when their own company only talks about downloads. They talk crap when Hellblade did not even sell. Well, that's what I mean, dude. That's why it's a joke. I'll be honest, man. Like I know I've kind of referenced this stuff multiple times today, but it's not even relevant. You know, these opinions of people, these words that people type, like they mean nothing. Well, they mean as much as I want them to mean, right? But at the end of the day, like they truly do mean nothing because it's just, yeah, if there's something I've learned about, and I'm not just saying it's like Xbox fans, it's just it doesn't matter what they're associated with, but they're everywhere. It's just they're fucking idiots. You know? Like I'm saying to you, there's a lot of fucking idiots on the internet. And they will just say shit. They will just say shit. And they will just talk out of their ass. And there are two types of idiots. There are those that are genuinely just that dumb and don't realize like how stupid they actually are and how stupid they actually sound with the things they're saying. And then there are the people who know they're being disingenuous. They know they're saying things that if they were to be taken on by a more critical eye or more critical evaluation, they understand that they would probably get torn up, you know, and it's fine. Like sometimes, you know, it's normal. I would say it's normal to have some bad takes sometimes. I think that's fine. Like we're all human. Sometimes we all do have some dumb takes. I've had dumb takes, you know, like it's normal. But it's just when you have like they're just like there's a normalcy in having some dumb takes on occasion. Not every take can be the best or a winning take, right? And that's normal. There's a difference between that and just literally every take is just like dumber than the next with no recovery ever. And it, you know what's weird is like if you see these people, because there are like the unfortunate reality is there are people who have these just unbelievably consistent bad takes that just get worse and worse and worse and worse. They do gain followings and they do have influence. And you know, some people say that I'm like that, but it's like, well, I mean, when you have to cherry pick everything I say and do, I think that kind of proves that to be untrue. But sure, believe what you want, I guess. But there are definitely people out there where it's just that. I guess what I'm trying to say is, man, like I can't stand the disingenuous bullshit nature of it anymore. Like I just can't. I don't have tolerance for it. And I realize that this is only going to do one thing and it's going to annoy me. And that's probably exactly what they want. So because of that, I'm just going to make the decision that, you know what, you can't annoy me. Not today, Satan, you know, like not necessarily Satan, but not today. Maybe not tomorrow either. Maybe no more. I get it. Like there are people who hide behind this behavior by acting like it's not that serious. It's all jokes. We're just having a good time. And it's like, I think you're just an asshole, but sure, just that's fine. Like you're an asshole. But if you just say you're just kidding, then I guess you're not, right? Isn't that how this works? And I'm not playing people's games, man. Like that's what I'm over and well beyond at this point. I still do catch glimpses of it. You know, I catch some strays, but people like to play games. And I'm not talking about video games. People like to play their games, and the only thing that matters to them, and this is the important part to understand for anybody. I know a lot of you already know this, but it's just worth mentioning for maybe those who don't. The only thing that you need to understand is the only thing that matters to these people who are playing these games is they want you to play the game with them. If you're playing the game, they win. The house always wins. So just don't play the game. There you go. They can't win, and you can't lose. They'll find somebody else. So, anyway, yeah, my God, this post-nasal drip is really getting out of hand. I need to go make some tea. So, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this Sunday stream. Oh, God. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm barely hanging in there at this point. So thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for the support today. We're sitting at 31 members gifted, and that's awesome to see. Thank you for that direct support, guys. I do apologize. I've been lacking on the members content. Hopefully you're understanding, and I know most of you are, all of you probably are, that I'm just been a little bit under the weather, and I gotta trying to make sure I can maintain the content output while recovering. Once I get fully recovered, we'll get back on a regular schedule with members content. But thank you so much for the support. Thank you for any of the super chats as well. The only other thing I want to ask you to do on your way out is to please hit that like button. It does help the streams more than you know. And I actually want to end this poll as well so we can see where we're at. So the poll results, 622 votes. 56% of you say it's awesome so far in regards to the PS5 Pro. 23% saying it's underwhelming, and 19% saying it's okay. So there you go. That's based on 622 votes. Before I go, I also want to give a shout out to Devil Shooter. He does the timestamps for the streams. So if you guys see him in the comments and you see him with those timestamps, please give him some thanks. I know he really appreciates it. He does a great job. He does a lot for the community. So Devil Shooter, thank you for what you do, man. And yeah, that's it. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of your Sunday. Get some good gaming in. And if everything goes according to plan, we should be back here tomorrow. Same time, same place, hopefully with less of a cough, hopefully. And and yeah, we'll see what topics we have to discuss then. So, all right. Enjoy your day, guys. I will catch everybody in the next one. Until then, take care, everyone.